Chapter 3060. Many dragons looked up at this scene, their faces pale and shocked. The dragons could not imagine how such a huge army could break through the dragon array and descend around Torch Dragon Planet. Activate the array, quick, quick! Torch Dragon King was dead, and the dragons on Torch Dragon Planet were leaderless. Spirit Dragon King was the first to react. He suppressed the shock in his heart and roared, Mystic Dragon King, Miss Dragon King, you guys guard the array core in the northeast. Flying Dragon King, Supreme Dragon King, you guys guard the array core in the southwest. Spirit Dragon King made a prompt decision and ordered the Dragon Kings to rush to the array cores on Torch Dragon Planet. Torch Dragon Planet had an astral guardian array. In such a situation, dozens of Dragon Kings rushing out was no different from sending themselves to their deaths. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. They could only rely on this astral guardian array to defend and wait for reinforcements from the other dragon regions and dragon islands to have a chance of survival. Spirit Dragon King's reaction was already the best response. In the main hall, Su Zimo frowned slightly. The surrounding void had been sealed. Although the Tai Yin Yang escape art could use the power of Yin and Yang to condense a spatial tunnel in shattered space, it could not break through the sealed void. In other words, the four of them were also trapped on Torch Dragon Planet. They were still a step too late. Of course, even if they could not leave for the time being, Su Zimo was relatively calm. He looked at the dense army outside and pondered. The Tomb Realm was only a high-level world, but there were more than 3,000 Grotto Heaven Kings? One had to know that some super worlds only had 2,000 to 3,000 kings. The Sword World was like that. Of course, some super worlds had even more kings. For example, in the Heaven World, just the kings of the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm alone were estimated to number 3,000. And the Stone World and Blood World had more than 10,000 kings. The Dragon World had the fewest kings, only a few hundred in total. In any case, the Tomb Realm was only a high-level world, and so many Grotto Heaven Kings had appeared. This surprised Su Zimo, but soon he thought of a possibility. When Su Zimo and the monkey arrived outside the Dragon World, there was a boundless sea of blood in the starry sky, but there was not a single corpse. Now that he thought about it, these corpses must have been collected by the cultivators of the Tomb Realm. In the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes, the more powerful the Tomb Realm was, the more powerful it would be. In other words, the Tomb Realm had benefited the most from the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes. Dragons, do not panic, Spirit Dragon King said loudly. As long as we work together and use the formation to protect Torch Dragon Planet, the experts of the other 4 dragon realms will come to our aid. The dragons, who were initially panicking, felt slightly relieved upon hearing this. Ha 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 ha. But soon, a loud laugh came from outside Torch Dragon Planet. The leading Peak King of the Tomb Realm said loudly, Spirit Dragon King, you are too naive. The other 4 dragon regions can't even protect themselves, so how can they care about you? The Corpse God King said slowly, this time, the Torch Dragon Domain will be led by the Tomb Realm. The Chi Dragon Domain will be led by the Blood Domain. The Chio Dragon Domain will be led by the Poison Domain. The Ing Dragon Domain will be led by the Bone Domain. And the Azure Dragon Domain will be led by the Wutong Domain. Each of them has gathered thousands, or even tens of thousands of Grotto Heavenly Kings. On Torch Dragon Planet, the dragons were in an uproar. The hearts of Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King sank, and their expressions turned extremely ugly. The 5 dragon regions were about to fall? Or was this Corpse God King bluffing? Su Zimo sighed softly when he heard that. Earlier on, he was wondering why the Grotto Heavenly Kings that descended around Torch Dragon Planet were mainly experts from the Tomb Realm. There were no Grotto Heavenly Kings from the Wutong Domain, Blood Domain and other realms. From the looks of it, the 5 dragon regions were in danger. Everyone listen to me. The Radiant Dragon King clenched his fists and tried his best to remain calm. He said loudly, even if the 5 dragon regions fall, Dragon Island will be our last retreat. As long as we defend Torch Dragon Planet, the Dragon Emperors on Dragon Island will definitely rush over to support us. Long Li's face turned pale when she saw that. At that moment, She nodded instinctively when she heard the Radiant Dragon King's words. That's right. More than 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings emitted such powerful energy fluctuations. The Imperial Lords of Dragon Island must have sensed it. It's hard to say. Su Zimo shook his head gently. The army of the Wutong domain had created such a huge formation to attack the 5 dragon regions at the same time. They would definitely have backup plans to restrict the dragon emperors on Dragon Island. Ha 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 ha. The Corpse God King laughed loudly once more and declared, Radiant Dragon King, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you guys. The dragon emperors on Dragon Island can't even take care of themselves and won't be able to save you guys. What? The dragons were shocked when they heard that. Could it be? Right then, an extremely intense energy fluctuation came from the direction of Dragon Island, causing the starry skies within billions of miles to tremble. Even the dragons on Torch Dragon Planet could sense it clearly. Fufu. Hehe. Another Peak Corpse King laughed and said, The battle of the emperors over there has already begun. The dragons on Torch Dragon Planet can only pray for the best. The dragons were filled with fear and despair. It could be said that Dragon Island was their last hope. If the Imperial Lords on Dragon Island could not provide support, how long could they defend with the dozens of Dragon Kings on this planet, and such a formation? Dozens of breaths. Half an incense stick's time? Su Zimo was silent. The worst-case scenario had still happened. The sudden attack of the Tomb Realm army on Beacon City was not a test at all. It was part of the final battle between the dragons and phoenixes. Under normal circumstances, the Tomb Realm army could have successfully taken down Beacon City and marched straight in to meet up with the surrounding experts of the Tomb Realm. However, Beacon City was saved because of Su Zimo's intervention. Even so, the other 9 dragon cities could not defend against such a formation. Su Zimo even suspected that Beacon City might have fallen after they left. Oh right. The Corpse God King seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, The army's attack this time was originally going smoothly. However, something happened at Beacon City. I heard that a human king intervened and killed more than 10 of our kings. However, it doesn't matter. The Corpse God King smiled faintly and continued, I've already personally bathed Beacon City in blood and killed everyone inside. That Long Feng is quite stubborn. He would rather die than submit. He even destroyed his own dragon body than be refined by me. Tisk tisk. The Corpse God King pursed his lips slightly. What a pity. I could only chop off his head and give it to everyone as a greeting gift. Before he finished speaking, the Corpse God King took out a bloody dragon head from his storage bag and tossed it casually towards Torch Dragon Planet. The dragon head rolled in midair with a hint of warmth in its blood. Judging from its slightly menacing facial features, it was the city lord of Dragonfeng City. When Long Ran saw that, he was furious and could not control himself. Chapter 3061. Looking at Long Feng's head, the dragons mourned and an aura of despair spread rapidly on the Illumination Dragon Planet. There was even a hint of fear on some of the dragons' faces. Once the hearts of the people crumbled, no matter how strong the formation on the Illumination Dragon Planet was, it was useless. Even the 2 Peak Kings, the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King, did not have the fighting spirit they had just now. Su Zimo shook his head gently. The dragons were facing internal and external troubles. They might be wiped out. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo did not want to get involved in the war between dragons and phoenixes, much less alert Wu Dao's true body. On one hand, the war between dragons and phoenixes was caused by the dragons conquering everywhere and causing the destruction of their race. The dragons could only blame themselves for the current situation. On the other hand, Daiyu was injured after the battle in the Great Wilderness. Wu Dao's true body guarded her at all times and cultivated in seclusion, while breaking through to the world realm in the Essence Martial Grotto Heaven. He could protect Daiyu and would not leave casually. Of course, some of the things that happened on the Illumination Dragon Planet gave Su Zimo new speculations about the war between dragons and phoenixes. There was a high chance that the witch race was behind the war between dragons and phoenixes, and was fanning the flames. The witch race might be the reason why the dragon world ended up in its current state. Of course, Those were only his speculations, and were not enough for Wu Dao's true body to come out of seclusion. Spirit Dragon King, Radiant Dragon King. The Corpse God King raised his voice once more. I think your dragon bodies are not bad. If you guys give up and surrender, I can promise to leave your corpses intact. From the tone of the Corpse God King, leaving the Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King with an intact corpse was already a great favor. The Corpse God King smiled again. Furthermore, you guys will be reborn and exist in another form in this world. The cultivators of the Tomb Realm burst into laughter when they heard that. The so-called rebirth was merely the battle corpses, refined by the Corpse God King into battle corpses. The Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King's faces darkened, and they remained silent. When had the dragons ever been bullied as such? Up till this point of their cultivation, had they ever been humiliated as such? Even if they surrendered, they would only be left with an intact corpse. Spirit Dragon King, I think we should. A Dragon King stood out and said hesitantly, seeming to be in a difficult position. My fellow clansmen, Spirit Dragon King didn't wait for him to finish. He looked around and said in a deep voice, I don't know the situation on Dragon Island, but I believe that the Dragon Emperors will not give up. They will fight to the death. The dragons have reached a critical juncture of life and death. If we take a step back, we will be facing the extinction of our race. Everyone, please remember that we are the dragon race. The dragons would rather die in battle than submit. Spirit Dragon King's impassioned voice spread to every corner of Torch Dragon Planet, reverberating between heaven and earth. Gradually, it awakened the fighting spirit of some dragons. I would rather die in battle than submit. With the Radiant Dragon King's loud response, the dragons also gradually let out one high-pitched dragon roar after another, creating a massive sound wave. However, such an aura was still far too inferior when compared to the 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings outside. Hehe, why bother? The Corpse God King looked at the dragons on the Torch Dragon Star, who were still trying to put up a fight. He shook his head with a mocking expression and said, in the face of absolute strength, fighting spirit and guts are not worth mentioning. Just crush them directly. Everyone break this formation for me. The Corpse God King pointed forward and said coldly, after breaking the formation, wash Torch Dragon Planet with blood. Leave no one alive. Boom. At his command, the 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings attacked at the same time. Thousands of divine weapons turned into streaks of divine light and rained down like rain. At the same time, Torch Dragon Planet's formation was activated, forming a crimson barrier around the planet. Many runes appeared on it, burning with flames. Boom, 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 boom. Numerous divine weapons descended and slammed into the formation, creating a series of deafening explosions. The formation began to shake, and the runes on it flickered, showing signs of collapsing at any time. The 5,000-odd Grotto Heaven Kings had yet to attack with their full strength. They merely summoned their respective Grotto Heaven numinous treasures, and the astral protection formation was already on the verge of collapse. When they saw that, the Corpse God King and the others reared their heads in laughter. On Torch Dragon Planet, the hearts of the dragons turned cold when they saw that. Their fighting spirit that had just been ignited was extinguished rapidly. The difference was too great. However, how could the dozens of Dragon Clan members possibly withstand such an attack? Suddenly, the two dragons guarding the formation core shuddered and spat out a mouthful of blood. It was clear that they could not withstand the impact of the formation and were severely injured. Crack, crack, crack. A cracking sound came from the formation core guarded by the two dragons and was about to shatter. A crack appeared on the astral protection formation as well. It's over. When they saw that, the eyes of the dragons were filled with despair. Even the eyes of the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King dimmed, and there was only a single thought in their minds. Torch Dragon Planet is finished. Long Ran looked at Su Zimo with guilt in his eyes and sighed. Zimo, it's all because of me that you were implicated. Pausing for a moment, Long Ran sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. We can only hope that your true body of Wu Dao will take revenge for us in the future. It's fine, I'll take you guys away. Su Zimo sent a voice transmission with a calm expression. Long Ran seemed to have thought of something, and hope reignited in his eyes as he asked hurriedly. Your true body of Wu Dao is here? Su Zimo shook his head gently. On second thought, Long Ran smiled bitterly. That's true. Araki Takashi is far away in the great wilderness. Even if he moves now, it'll take him at least a day to arrive. Apart from Daiyu, no one else knew what Wu Dao's true body was capable of, and Su Zimo did not explain either. He only called the monkey Long Ran and Long Li, who was beside him, who was somewhat helpless and worried, and headed out of Torch Dragon Planet. Where are we going? The Long Li was confused. Don't worry about that. Let's go. Monkey called out. He could not be bothered to think about such complicated things. In any case, there was nothing wrong with following Su Zimo. Monkey and the other two followed beside Su Zimo, and headed out of Torch Dragon Planet. Many dragons noticed the movements of the four of them. The Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King looked over instinctively as well. One of the dragons looked at Su Zimo, who had just passed by not far away, and could not help but ask, "What are you doing?" "Leaving," Su Zimo replied simply. "Huh." The Dragon King was stunned. When the other Dragon Kings heard that reply, they were dumbfounded as well, and felt that it was extremely absurd. If not for the fact that they were at such a critical juncture, they would have even laughed out loud. Is that human king scared out of his wits? Is he leaving now? Where does he want to go with that lineup outside? Even mosquitoes on Torch Dragon Planet won't be able to fly out, let alone a person. Fufu, he's really persistent. Earlier on in the hall he wanted to leave. Even now, he's still thinking about it. The Dragon King remembered clearly that this human king was extremely arrogant in the hall, and confronted dozens of Dragon Kings. He even declared that no one here could stop him. You can leave this time round. We won't stop you. The Dragon King sneered. Chapter 3062. Could they be from the Tomb Realm? A Dragon King frowned. Could the Flame Dragon King be right and Long Li and the others have truly betrayed the dragons? There were still Dragon Kings who were prejudiced against Su Zimo's group. No. The Spirit Dragon King shook his head gently. The corpse god mentioned something earlier on. A human king killed more than 10 Tomb Realm kings in Beacon City, was only saved for the time being. How can he be on the side of the Tomb Realm? The Brilliant Dragon King added. Look at the way the kings outside are looking at that green-robed cultivator. They can't wait to tear him apart. It's clear that they don't know each other. The Dragon King did not say anything else. The Spirit Dragon King frowned and said in a deep voice, "However, I wonder what he's trying to do? If he stays on Illumination Dragon Planet with the protection of the formation, he can at least live for a little longer. If he leaves, the dragons were not the only ones. Even the many kings outside the Torch Dragon Planet stopped what they were doing and looked at the green figure that soared into the sky with unfriendly expressions. It's him. A true spirit that escaped from Beacon City could not help but shout. That's the person who attacked and killed many of our kings in Beacon City. Human king? The corpse god murmured softly with a playful look in his eyes. Su Zimo brought Monkey and the other three to the front of the formation. With a few tricks, he brought the four of them through a crack that appeared on the formation and into the cosmos outside. Earlier on Illumination Dragon Planet, Long Ran and the other two could not sense it clearly because of the formation. Now that they were in the cosmos outside Illumination Dragon Planet, and surrounded by more than 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings, the three of them finally felt a terrifying might. It was like a raging sea that surged over in a suffocating manner. This was a realm war. Apart from the Tomb Realm, there were more than 100 Grotto Heaven Kings of various sizes around them. Only a realm war could gather the power of so many realms together to form such a terrifying formation. Even Monkey's bloodline could not withstand it at that moment. If not for Su Zimo blocking in front of them, the three of them would have collapsed on the spot. On Torch Dragon Planet, the dragons raised their heads and watched this scene. The more than 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings outside stared coldly at Su Zimo without saying a word. They wanted to see what this human king wanted to do. Everyone. Su Zimo cupped his fists and said indifferently with a calm expression, "Please make way." The starry sky suddenly became absolutely silent. Whether it was the dragons on Candle Dragon Planet, or the hundreds of millions of soldiers in the starry sky, regardless of their cultivation level, they all looked at Su Zimo in astonishment. For a moment, the crowd couldn't wrap their heads around it. No one would be surprised if this human king knelt down and begged for mercy, or decided to fight to the death. However, none of them had expected that this human king would only say, "Please make way for me." After running out of the cave, this human king, judging from his tone, he seemed to be quite polite. Not to mention the more than 5,000 cave heavenly kings in the starry sky, the dragons on Torch Dragon Planet, and even the three behind Su Zimo almost bit their tongues when they heard just now's words. "Ha!" The corpse god king gradually came back to his senses and sneered. After surveying his surroundings, he looked at Su Zimo and asked, "Are you serious?" "Very serious," Su Zimo said. "You were the one who killed the Tomb Realm King in Beacon City, right?" "Yes." "So you still want to leave alive?" "Yes." Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo continued, "Besides, you guys can't stop me if I want to leave." Upon hearing that, not only did the corpse god king laugh out loud, even the surrounding crowd burst into laughter. On Torch Dragon Planet, a dragon king sneered, "This person is spouting nonsense outside. He's afraid that he won't die quickly enough." Long Li's eyes reddened as he took a step forward and whispered, "Brother Su, I know you're doing this for my own good, but the situation now is different from Beacon City. There are only more than 10 kings in Beacon City. There are more than 5,000 here." At the mention of that number, Long Li's heart trembled. "It doesn't make much of a difference to me," Su Zimo replied casually. Long Li's mind was in a mess, and he did not understand what Su Zimo meant. He merely murmured to himself, "There's no way out for us. We won't be able to see Mother again in this lifetime." Su Zimo said, "Since there's no way out, we'll just have to kill our way out." Ha 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 ha. The laughter in the crowd grew louder and more ear-piercing. Almost everyone thought that Su Zimo was joking or even losing his mind. Monkey, who knew him the best, seemed to have realized something as he grinned with nervousness and excitement in his eyes. "The three of you head back first." Su Zimo waved his sleeves and sent Monkey and the other two back to Torch Dragon Planet, before turning to face the surrounding grotto heavenly kings. "What's the matter?" A Tomb Realm king sneered. "Are we going to fight? Kill our way out?" The other kings also chuckled and looked relaxed. They could not be blamed for that. It was just an army of more than 5,000 grotto heavenly kings. They did not need to take an ordinary human king seriously. What threat could this seemingly thin and weak human king pose to them? "Zombie god, wait for me to capture him alive and give him to you. Refine him into a battle corpse while he's still alive," a peerless king of the Tomb Realm said as he charged towards Su Zimo in a flash. The zombie god king did not take it seriously. He waved his hand and curled his lips. "Look at his white and tender flesh. I'd despise such a corpse even if you gave it to me for free." "Is that so?" Looking at the peerless king who was charging over, Su Zimo chuckled. Although he did not manifest his bloodline, after Qinglian's true body cultivated to the peak of the 12th grade, her bones were clear and her blood had been replaced. Her skin was so fair that it seemed like it would break at the slightest touch. Such a body was naturally not worthy of the zombie god king's attention. In the knowledge of Tomb Realm cultivators, only Protoss, dragons, stoners, and so on were the best battle corpse materials. The reason why the peerless king of the Tomb Realm was so arrogant that he did not even summon his battle corpse was because his cultivation realm was higher than Su Zimo's. In his opinion, even if his body and bloodline were ordinary, he could still capture this human king alive. This human king had tender skin. It would be a pity if his battle corpse scratched his skin. In the blink of an eye, the Tomb Realm king approached with corpse chi swirling around him. He reached out to grab Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo did not move at all. There was not even the slightest ripple in his eyes, as if someone had frozen him in place. Just as the palm of the peerless king of the Tomb Realm was about to make contact with his head, Su Zimo suddenly struck. Too fast. Everyone felt as if Su Zimo had raised his arm. With a bang, the Tomb Realm king was sent flying. The head on his neck spun a few times before his neck bone shattered, and his nascent spirit extinguished. He was already dead by the time he fell to the ground. Chapter 3063. A peerless king had died just like that. Many kings didn't even have time to react. Their expressions were relaxed as they chatted casually with the people around them. In the blink of an eye, the peerless king who had charged forward had already died. Wasn't this too fast? When many people saw this scene, they even felt that it was unreal. After entering the Grotto Heaven realm and becoming a king, everyone had all sorts of life-saving methods. Even in a battle between kings, unless there was a great disparity in numbers like now, or absolute suppression in strength, it was very difficult to die. It was one thing for a peerless king to die so quickly. What really surprised everyone was that this human king dared to kill in front of more than 5,000 kings. The dragons on Candle Dragon Planet were also shocked by this scene. Some of the dragon kings who were initially critical and even doubtful of Su Zimo fell silent at that moment. They could only defend Candle Dragon Planet to the death. They didn't even dare to charge out, let alone kill a peerless king in front of everyone. A dragon king snorted and said, "This person has some tricks up his sleeve, but his actions will only anger the other party. It's too unwise." "What's so unwise about that?" Spirit Dragon King frowned and said, "The other party doesn't plan to let him go at all. They're already charging up to kill him. If we don't go back, should we kneel and beg for mercy?" Spirit Dragon King glanced at that Dragon King and shook his head. He couldn't believe that a Dragon King would say such words. "It's useless to go back. It won't affect anything." That Dragon King said, "He can kill one king, but can he kill 10, 100 or 1,000? If he goes out now, he's just a mantis trying to stop a chariot." In the starry sky, the Corpse King glanced at the Tomb Realm King who had just died. His expression didn't change at all, as if the Tomb Realm King had nothing to do with him. Only one Grotto Heaven King had died. To the Corpse King, who had an army of more than 5,000 kings, it was nothing. In such a situation, let alone a normal king, even 10 or 100 kings wouldn't be able to do anything. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The Corpse King sneered and waved his hand. "Kill him." Dozens of kings charged out from the crowd. Some were normal kings, while others were peerless kings. Peak kings were not interested in an ordinary king like Su Zimo. There were still some kings who were prepared to make a move, but when they saw so many people rushing out at once, they didn't step forward. Su Zimo looked at the dozens of kings who were charging over with a calm expression and said indifferently, "A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Not bad. However, it's hard to say who's the mantis and who's the car." At this moment, of course, no one cared about this sentence. When everyone heard this, they only snorted and laughed disdainfully. Dozens of Grotto Heaven kings rushed up together. An ordinary king holding up a Grotto Heaven was quite a sight. However, the other Grotto Heaven kings all looked at him with a trace of disdain. This person's face turned red, and he put away his Grotto Heaven. There were dozens of Grotto Heaven kings, and dozens of Supreme Kings. Even if each of them were to stomp the human king to death, why would they need to use their Grotto Heavens? In the face of such an attack, Su Zimo did not dodge or retreat. Instead, he charged toward the dozens of kings barehanded. This scene looked like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It was as if in the next moment, Su Zimo would be crushed to pieces by the rolling wheels of the chariot. Just as the two sides were about to collide, a dazzling green sword light burst out from Su Zimo's glabella. Buzz! A sword hum sounded. Su Zimo held the chinkping sword in his hand and turned into a sword light as he charged into the crowd. Sword shadows appeared one after another, and the sword light was blazing, cleansing the surroundings and instantly engulfing dozens of kings. In fact, when these Grotto Heaven kings saw the green sword light, they realized that something was wrong and wanted to hold up a Grotto Heaven. However, that sword light was too dazzling, and the kings felt pain in their eyes. A sword hum suddenly sounded, and like a sharp sword, it pierced their ears. For a moment, the kings lost all their 5 senses. It was this slight delay that allowed the green sword light to sweep over like a tide and directly engulf the kings. The next moment, Blinding blood gushed out and splattered into the cosmos with a torrential blood chi. In the blood mist, only a figure was left standing. His black hair danced and he wielded a sword. His green robes were still the same, and were not stained with blood, both inside and outside Illumination Dragon Planet. The dragons and billions of troops were dumbfounded when they saw that. It was too fast. The sword hum sounded, and before it dissipated, the battle was already over. The dozens of kings that charged forward were all dead without a single one of them surviving. In fact, not even their complete corpses were left. All that was left was a blood mist and broken limbs. Of course, everyone knew that the death of dozens of Grotto Heaven kings was not because they were weak, but because they had underestimated their enemy. Even so, Su Zimo's attack still shocked countless cultivators. The corpse god king narrowed his eyes slightly but remained calm. His gaze landed on the Qingping sword as he nodded. Not a bad sword. Before the corpse god king could give the order, hundreds of Grotto Heaven kings stood out. Among them, there were even 3 peak stage kings. This time, many Grotto Heaven kings stopped underestimating him and charged forward with their Grotto Heavens. "Get out of my way!" A peak stage king shouted. These 3 peak stage kings had sharp eyes. They had taken a fancy to the Qingping sword in Su Zimo's hand and wanted to take it for themselves. The other hundreds of Grotto Heaven kings could only disperse helplessly. The 3 peak stage kings charged forward. Although they did not release their perfected Grotto Heavens, they did not dare to be careless, and took out their respective Grotto Heaven spiritual treasures. The sharpness of the green longsword even made them feel a chill. Su Zimo suddenly smiled at the 3 peak stage kings who were charging over and said, "Actually, my physical body and bloodline are not bad either." Boom. As soon as he said that, the sound of a tsunami came from Su Zimo's body. A huge amount of blood chi gushed out like the sea, attracting countless gazes. Even the corpse god king's expression changed as he looked over. "What powerful blood chi," the corpse god king murmured. "Did I misjudge?" Such powerful blood chi was something that even beings like the Protoss and dragons might not be able to cultivate. Could it be that this human's physical body and bloodline had some kind of background? There were many Grotto Heaven kings present, but not many of them could see through it just based on blood chi. In the next moment, Su Zimo directly pushed his bloodline to the limit. A jade green lotus suddenly rose from behind him, almost bursting through heaven and earth. It swayed and shone, causing the starry sky to tremble. The stars dimmed, and the sun and moon lost their color. Chapter 3064. Su Zimo possessed the creation Qinglian bloodline, and was aware of the cruelty of the upper realm. After ascending, he had been trying his best to hide it, as though he was treading on thin ice, and did not dare to expose himself. Even so, he nearly lost his life and circled the gates of hell before being reborn with the help of the Emperor's tomb. Even in the Sword World, the 8 peak masters of the Sword World and the 3 peak masters of the Sword World knew about his Qinglian bloodline. However, they did not dare to announce it, as they were worried that it would bring him death. However, after the battle in the Great Wilderness, Qinglian's true body had entered the Grotto Heaven, and there was no need for him to hide his bloodline anymore. Even if the world knew that Su Zimo possessed the Grade 12 creation Qinglian bloodline, so what? He was fearless no matter how many Grotto Heavenly kings of the same cultivation realm came. If there were truly imperial lords who were blind, Wu Dao's true body could descend at any time. At that time, he wanted to see who would dare to plot against the creation Qinglian. The billions of troops looked at the jade green Qinglian that swayed in the galaxy with shocked expressions. Is that the legendary creation Qinglian? It's actually a peak grade 12. The creation Qinglian has already fused with that person. His flesh and blood is the creation Qinglian. A wave of exclamations sounded from the crowd. Many kings' eyes lit up. When the dragons on Illumination Dragon Planet saw the jade green Qinglian that connected heaven and earth, their eyes widened, and their hearts skipped a beat. Brother Su hit it so well. Longli was speechless when he saw that. She seemed to have thought of something, and could not help but exclaim. In other words, Brother Su did not use his full strength, even when he was surrounded by more than 20 supreme true spirits in the fiend battlefield of the celestial tribute world back then. He was already the #1 true spirit in history, without using his full strength. Longley was secretly shocked. In the cosmos, the 3 peak-level kings had just taken out their Grotto Heaven spiritual treasures, and were about to show off their skills when they ran into Qinglian, a level 12 creation realm cultivator. The 12th grade creation Qinglian merely swayed gently, and the 3 peak stage kings trembled violently, bursting out into a mist of blood. The surface of their bodies cracked, and they were almost shattered on the spot. The 3 of them were overwhelmed with shock. Just as they were about to prop up a Grotto Heaven, this Qinglian of good fortune was swaying in the air, and when it landed on their bodies, it instantly tore their bodies apart. Under countless gazes, the creation Qinglian gently swayed, and the bodies of the 3 peak stage kings were shattered into dust. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, and not even their bones remained. Not to mention the fact that these 3 peak sovereign personages only had ordinary physical bodies and bloodlines. They did not even condense their bloodline mysterious phenomena. Even if it was a peak dragon king, or a peak divine king from a powerful race, they would still be suppressed in close combat by Qinglian, a grade 12 creation realm expert. What a powerful bloodline! On Torch Dragon Planet, Spirit Dragon King, and the others exclaimed. Su Zimo killed 3 peak stage kings instantly with a single bloodline phenomenon. Another Dragon King said, those 3 peak stage kings underestimated their opponent too much. They only needed to release perfected Grotto Heavens to suppress that bloodline phenomenon. The Radiant Dragon King said, no matter what, fellow Taoist Su has already killed dozens of kings. Even if he dies now, it's still a gain. Kill. The death of the 3 peak stage kings triggered a massive battle. Many Grotto Heaven kings hollered and attacked one after another. Many Tomb Realm kings released their refined battle corpses. There were hundreds and thousands of them, forming a massive corpse tide. They roared and charged toward Su Zimo. However, the moment those battle corpses entered the range of the grade 12 creation Qinglian's green light, they would find it difficult to move and endure immense pressure. Furthermore, the green light could cause immense damage to the battle corpses. Corpse chi surrounded the battle corpses, and their bodies were lifeless. On the other hand, the creation Qinglian was filled with boundless life force. Life and death. When the 2 extreme powers collided, an intense conflict was bound to occur. No matter how strong those battle corpses were, they could not withstand the might of the creation Qinglian. At this rate, before the battle corpses could even touch the corner of that human king's robes, they would turn into pus and be completely crippled by the light of the Qinglian. When many Tomb Realm kings saw that, they hurriedly controlled their battle corpses to retreat. Just like that, the bodies of these battle corpses had already suffered great damage, and their battle prowess was greatly reduced. Although the battle corpses were strong, they were suppressed by the grade 12 creation Qinglian, and could not unleash any strength. Good. When he saw that, the corpse god king was overjoyed and praised repeatedly with an excited expression. Grade 12 creation Qinglian. This is an opportunity bestowed upon me by the heavens. It was no wonder that the corpse god king was so excited. The stronger the grade 12 creation Qinglian was, the stronger the combat strength of the battle corpses would be after they were refined into battle corpses. If they could successfully refine her, even the god corpses and dragon corpses would have to give way. Scram! The corpse god king stepped into the battlefield and shouted, this Qinglian is mine! Most of the Grotto Heaven kings ignored him, and did not stop. When a battle broke out, it was difficult to stop it with just a few words. The corpse god king was only a king, not an imperial emperor. He did not have the prestige and strength to suppress others. The corpse god king's expression darkened. With so many people and thousands of Grotto Heavens, even the grade 12 creation Qinglian would not be able to withstand it, and would be shattered in an instant. Even the slightest damage to the grade 12 Qinglian would cause him great heartache. It would affect the battle corpse's strength in the future. The corpse god king's eyes shone with murderous intent. He controlled his battle corpses, and tore a Burning Moon Realm king in half. The Burning Moon Realm was only a low-level realm. This king had come with the Tomb Realm army, but he had been severely injured by the corpse god king. The Burning Moon Realm King's primordial spirit left his body with a furious expression, but he did not dare to say anything to the corpse god king. He turned around and fled. However, before his primordial spirit could escape far, a scarlet blood tongue tore through the air and instantly swept up his primordial spirit, pulling it back. The corpse god king's battle corpses had stretched out their tongues and swallowed the Burning Moon Realm King's primordial spirit. This battle corpse charged left and right through the crowd, and it killed a few heavenly abode kings and caused an expanse of chaos. Many kings had just rushed forward, but before they could use their grotto heavens to suppress the battle corpses, they saw this scene and felt their hearts tremble. The corpse god king was ruthless and even killed people on his side. The kings were wary and stopped moving forward, opening a path for him. The corpse god king was secretly delighted when he saw this. In the blink of an eye, he charged toward Su Zimo. He knew that the battle corpses would be restricted by the creation Qinglian, so he directly released his grotto heavens. Boom! The grotto heavens clashed with the grade 12 Qinglian's avatar, resulting in a loud explosion. The corpse god king's grotto heavens were unable to suppress Su Zimo's bloodline avatar. The two sides faced each other in the air, neither giving way to the other. The corpse god king's expression did not change, as if he had been prepared for this scene. A cold light flashed through his eyes. The best way to obtain an intact corpse was to use a primordial spirit secret technique to destroy the opponent's primordial spirit. However, this human king was only at the initial stage of the grotto heavens realm. His primordial spirit was his greatest weakness. The corpse god king had already thought of a countermeasure before he attacked. Chapter 3065. The corpse god king's perfected grotto heaven entangled Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon and channeled his essence spirit at the same time. The spirit consciousness of a pinnacle king gathered rapidly in his glabella and burst forth in the form of an essence spirit secret skill. A lifeless gray mist shrouded over and stole all life in its path. Before it even arrived, it transformed into a finger-sized battle corpse that lunged towards Su Zimo's consciousness. That was an essence spirit secret skill of the Tomb Realm, and was a killing move of a top-tier cultivation technique of the Tomb Realm. It was similar to the reverse-scale secret skill of dragons. The offensive power of the essence spirit battle corpse was not considered top-tier. However, the moment an opponent's essence spirit secret skill fought against it, corpse chi would surge into one's consciousness and cause immense trouble for one's essence spirit. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged against the essence spirit secret skill of the corpse god king. He did not conjure an essence spirit secret skill to fight against it, and merely slashed at the incoming essence spirit battle corpse with the Qingping sword. The corpse god king was delighted when he saw that. The only way to defend against an essence spirit secret skill was to use one's spirit consciousness. Unless it was an essence spirit weapon, there was no way one could defend against an essence spirit secret skill. However, the sword in the hands of the human king was extremely sharp and could slice through flesh. It was clearly an ordinary grotto heaven numinous treasure. Exclamation point. Right then, the Qingping sword made contact with the essence spirit battle corpse and sliced it into two without any resistance. Not only did the corpse chi fail to surge into Su Zimo's consciousness, it was dispersed by the immense life force of the Qingping sword. The corpse god king's heart skipped a beat. How was that possible? How could a weapon that could slice through flesh defend against a spirit consciousness attack? Before he could figure it out, a sword beam burst forth from the Qingping sword with a shuddering aura and pierced towards his glabella instantly. Was that an essence spirit secret skill? The corpse god king's pupils constricted, and his expression changed in shock. At that moment, he even smelled the aura of death, and his hair stood on end uncontrollably as his scalp prickled. During the growth of the creation Qinglian, many lotus seeds formed the Qinglian sword that could deal extreme damage to essence spirits. When the Qinglian of creation reached the 12th grade and stepped into the pinnacle, the Qingping sword was born. The Qingping sword was formed from the green lotus sword, which was condensed from 108 lotus seeds, as a sword embryo. In other words, Not only was the Qingping sword a top-notch divine weapon, but it was also an essence soul-type killing sword. Su Zimo could use the Qingping sword to attack the essence spirit at any time. The corpse god king didn't expect this green longsword to be so powerful. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven for Qinglian to grow to the peak of 12th grade. In this life, the immortal Slayer Emperor had only raised it to the 11th grade. Almost no one had ever seen the Qingping sword, let alone know how terrifying it was. In the blink of an eye, the sword light entered the corpse god king's sea of consciousness. It was as silent as a stone ox entering the sea. The corpse god king's body only swayed slightly, and his face became even paler. However, the vitality in his body had not dissipated, and he was still alive. The corpse god king's essence spirit was still wearing a stone-skinned corpse robe. It was refined from the essence spirit of a stone race king, and was a defensive essence soul-type numinous treasure. It was this stone-skinned corpse robe that blocked the killing technique. However, the Qingping sword's sharpness still shattered the stone-skinned corpse robe, and dealt a significant blow to the corpse god king's essence spirit. The corpse god king's perfected grotto heaven shook slightly, and became extremely unstable, showing a trace of weakness. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as his blood qi surged. The creation Qinglian swayed, and multicolored light spread out. He crushed the corpse god king's perfected grotto heaven in one fell swoop. Su Zimo's eyes were cold as he charged forward with sword in hand. Without the protection of the grotto heaven, the battle corpse was suppressed by the creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon, and couldn't get close at all. Under Su Zimo's sword, the corpse god king was like a fish on the chopping block. Come and help me. The corpse god king realized the danger he was in, and he couldn't help but roar. Many of the kings of the realms had just been killed by him, and they all scattered. Seeing the corpse god king in trouble, these kings couldn't help but hesitate. There were even some kings who were gloating over their misfortune. If the corpse god king died, so be it. It didn't affect the situation too much. After all, they had thousands of grotto heaven kings and billions of soldiers. If it weren't for the corpse god king, they would have already killed that human king. Would they have allowed him to survive until now? The kings of the other realms all had different thoughts. The corpse god king of the tomb realm definitely wouldn't let the corpse god king die here. You're courting death. Kill him. The three peak corpse kings closest to the corpse god king came forward, and didn't hold back. They formed grotto heavens and attacked Su Zimo together. Seeing this, the corpse god king relaxed. He looked at Su Zimo and sneered. You're still a bit lacking if you want to kill me. Facing the three peak kings, Su Zimo didn't stop at all. He only stared coldly at the corpse god king. The corpse god king felt a little uneasy under Su Zimo's stare. Did this human king have something else up his sleeves? No matter how strong he was only at the initial stage of the grotto heaven realm. His bloodline phenomenon was indeed powerful, but it definitely couldn't block the three peak kings' grotto heavens. If I want to kill you, they can't stop me. At this moment, Su Zimo's voice sounded. It was calm and powerful. Whoever stops me will die. Boom! With a loud sound, the space around Su Zimo collapsed, and a small grotto heaven appeared. Although it was only a small grotto heaven, it was extremely magical. Inside, there were bright lights, lightning, thunder, and rain. Countless runes were forming all sorts of strange phenomena in the grotto heaven. Ha! The corpse god king was slightly startled, but he quickly laughed and said, It's just a small grotto heaven. Boom. 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 Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by 4 explosions. Apart from the initial small grotto heavens, the voids around Su Zimo collapsed one after another, and a massive power of grotto heavens gushed out. This time, it wasn't just the corpse god king and the 3 peak corpse kings. The surrounding army of billions, more than 5,000 grotto heavenly kings, and the hundreds of thousands of dragons on Torch Dragon Planet all widened their eyes in shock. Across thousands of miles of the Milky Way, all the living beings who saw this scene were in great shock. At this moment, the world seemed to have quieted down. Many experts were in disbelief and disbelief. The scene in front of them had completely overturned their understanding of cultivation. Five grotto heavens? The spirit dragon king's voice trembled slightly. Such a shocking scene had never appeared even in ancient legends, let alone witnessing it with their own eyes. Chapter 3066. This battle was different from the battle against the Monkey Kings on the path to heaven. At that time, Su Zimo had just stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm. He was still unsure of how powerful the 5 small Grotto Heavens were. Therefore, when he released them one by one, he wanted to feel the power of each small paradise and see how much improvement they could bring him. But today was different. Su Zimo didn't need to feel anything anymore, nor did he need to hold back. Only by using thunderous methods could he turn the situation around. Therefore, Su Zimo released 5 Grotto Heavens the moment he attacked, causing the starry sky to tremble and heaven and earth to shake. Many living beings cried out at the same time with shocked expressions. Not to mention the kings present. Even the imperial emperors would feel their scalps go numb and gasp when they saw this scene. The Corpse God King and the 3 Peak Corpse Kings were also shocked. Don't panic. The Corpse God King was the first to react. He shouted, "It's only 5 small Grotto Heavens. No matter how strong they can't match your perfected stage." Boom! The 3 perfected Grotto Heavens collided with the 5 small Grotto Heavens, resulting in a deafening explosion. The Corpse God King's voice was once again drowned out by the explosion. Each of the 5 small Grotto Heavens had a forbidden mystic manual as its foundation. Facing 3 perfected Grotto Heavens, Su Zimo still had the upper hand with his 5 small Grotto Heavens. However, it was not easy to completely suppress the 3 perfected Grotto Heavens in a short period of time. If he delayed for a moment, the surrounding Grotto Heavenly Kings would react and swarm forward. There was no need for 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings. Any 500 Grotto Heavens of various sizes would cause Su Zimo's 5 small Grotto Heavens to collapse on the spot. After releasing the 5 small Grotto Heavens, Su Zimo activated his primordial spirit and unleashed the power of the Grotto Heavens to the extreme. In an instant, countless runes surged out from the 5 Grotto Heavens. Rays of light shone brightly, thunder rumbled, torrential rain, various Buddhas appeared, dragons and elephants trumpeted, Sanskrit chants reverberated, demons roared, sword tombs stood in great numbers, and the sun and moon accompanied them. All sorts of Tao techniques and talismans manifested mysterious phenomena that covered the sky and the sun. Furthermore, there was the bloodline mysterious phenomenon that he had just unleashed. In that instant, the power Su Zimo erupted with reached the pinnacle. The Qingmian of creation flickered with life. Together with the 5 Grotto Heavens, it instantly defeated the 3 Grotto Heavens. The runes were like an ocean, surging forward and swallowing the Corpse God King and the other 3. The entire process took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. The appearance of the 5 Grotto Heavens shook the hearts of all the kings. By the time they reacted, the Corpse God King and the 3 Peak Corpse Kings had already died, killed by Su Zimo on the spot. On Torch Dragon Planet, dozens of Dragon Kings looked at each other in shock. Since this human king had left Torch Dragon Planet, dozens of Cave Heavenly Kings had died in his hands. Just now, even the Corpse God King and the 3 Peak Tier Kings had been killed by him. As for this human king, he was only at the initial success stage of the Grotto Heaven realm. A Dragon King murmured softly, "If we wait for this person to mature, it's truly unimaginable. His potential is even terrifying." Long Ran and Long Li's spirits were lifted, and their minds were stirred. "Dragon Kings," Long Ran suggested. "Right now, Zimo has killed the other party's Cave Heavenly Kings consecutively, and his aura is at its peak. Let's take the opportunity to charge out and defeat the other party in one go." Although all the Dragon Kings were secretly shocked by the terrifying combat strength that Su Zimo had just displayed, they were still shocked. However, they calmed down quickly when they heard Long Ran's suggestion. A Dragon King shook his head slightly. His 5 Grotto Heavens are indeed shocking. However, they're only Grotto Heavens after all. Even if they're combined, there's still a limit to their strength. That's right. Another Dragon King agreed. Even if the Corpse God and the others are dead, it won't affect them much. Up until now, the number of grotto heavens has not decreased by much. Up till this point of the battle, less than 100 grotto heavenly kings had died in the cosmos. For an army of 5,000 grotto heavenly kings, it was indeed negligible. The Dragon King continued. As long as the remaining grotto heavens join forces and attack together, even if Su Zimo creates 10 or 100 grotto heavens, it won't matter, let alone 5. Long Ran was displeased, but he could not say anything, and could only harumph softly. He was only a true spirit. If he charged out, he would only be sending himself to his death. On the battlefield in the cosmos outside the Illumination Dragon Star, it was as the Dragon King had said. The death of the corpse god did not cause much chaos in the Tomb Realm army. There was only a slight commotion in the crowd that calmed down quickly. This time round, no one gave any orders. The many grotto heavens had a tacit understanding and attacked at the same time, charging towards Su Zimo. Thousands of grotto heavens tore through the air and streaked through the air, forming an impenetrable net that enveloped down. Countless Dao techniques and secret skills seemed to have formed a massive tsunami in the cosmos, overturning countless stars and surging over. Not only that, there were thousands of grotto heavens of various sizes that descended as well. It was a spectacular scene. What kind of scene was it when more than 5,000 kings attacked at the same time? The surrounding cosmos was almost shattered into pieces. The 5 grotto heavens appeared dim and dull under such an attack. Su Zimo was surrounded by 5 grotto heavens. Before they could collide with the surrounding forces, the 5 grotto heavens could not hold on anymore. The Dao techniques and runes dimmed, and the phenomenon dissipated. Su Zimo stood in the air, and his body swayed like a small boat in a raging sea that could capsize at any moment. The Dragon King was right. Although the 5 grotto heavens were unprecedented, they were still grotto heavens after all, and had a limit to their power. Once thousands of grotto heavens joined forces, the 5 grotto heavens would not be able to resist at all. What a pity. Seeing this, the Spirit Dragon King sighed softly. The dozens of Dragon Kings could clearly see that Su Zimo's death was a foregone conclusion against such an attack. More than 5,000 kings attacked at the same time. Divine weapons, Dao techniques, secret techniques, and grotto heavens sealed off all paths of retreat and cut off all chances of survival. The Dragon Kings could not think of any possibility for this human king to escape in the face of such an attack. Longli seemed to have thought of something, as a glimmer of hope flashed across her beautiful eyes. She muttered, Perhaps there is still a chance." "What?" the Spirit Dragon King asked. Longli said, "Back then in the evil demon battlefield, when Big Brother Su was faced with the simultaneous eruption of many supreme divine abilities, he once released a Buddhist secret technique, all Dharma and Atta. He hid in the void and was untouchable by all techniques, avoiding all attacks." Hearing this, the dozens of Dragon Kings shook their heads. The Spirit Dragon King also sighed. The Anatta laws touched upon the profound meaning of space, and is a grotto heaven-level secret technique. That's why he can hide in the void and enter the state of Anatta, to avoid the attacks of all true spirits. However, he is now facing grotto heavens. The void he is in has already been shattered by thousands of grotto heavens. Even if he uses the Anatta laws, there is no space that can accommodate him. This is a dead end with no solution. End of chapter. Chapter 3067. Rumble. Boom. Boom. Under countless gazes, numerous divine weapons, Dao techniques and secret skills rained down. Thousands of grotto heavens of various sizes came crashing down and collided with the 5 smaller grotto heavens, resulting in a deafening explosion. Without any resistance, the 5 smaller grotto heavens collapsed as though they were twigs. Su Zimo's figure was engulfed by such a terrifying and ferocious attack as well. By the time everyone stopped, the cosmos had already been reduced to dust. There was no trace of Su Zimo left behind, not even a trace of blood. "That's too ruthless," the brilliant Dragon King sighed. "That's a true destruction of both body and soul. Not even his corpse is left. He was wiped out alive. Is there no miracle in the end?" The Longli gazed at the battlefield in a daze, as though he was searching for something. The cosmos there was shattered, and only nothingness was left. Monkey and Long Ram believed that Su Zimo would not die just like that. However, at that moment, both of them had grim expressions and were still uneasy. Feel your own heart. Your heart has no place to stay. Life and death are unfettered. Illusions of the body and mind are extinguished. Dharmic emptiness is everywhere. Right then, a mysterious and ancient Sanskrit voice sounded from the shattered cosmos. Every single word seemed to contain endless mysteries. The Sanskrit voice reverberated through the cosmos for thousands of kilometers and grew louder and more shocking. What's that sound? Who's playing tricks? The thousands of kings in the cosmos were bewildered as they looked around. They released their spirit consciousnesses, but did not discover anyone suspicious. The source of the Sanskrit voice was in the cosmos where Su Zimo died. However, there was nothing there except nothingness. On the Illumination Dragon planet, when the Longli heard the Sanskrit voice, he was invigorated and laughed through his tears, exclaiming excitedly, "It's Brother Su! Brother Su isn't dead." Ah! The dozens of Dragon Kings were shocked. That can't be right? The Spirit Dragon King couldn't believe it. He asked hesitantly, how did fellow Taoist Su survive such a massacre? It's dharmic emptiness. The Longli said. Back in the evil demon battlefield, Brother Su released it once. That's impossible. The Radiant Dragon King frowned and said, that part of the starry sky has been shattered. Even if you use the Anatta Dharma, there's nowhere to run. How can you possibly avoid the attacks of several thousand Grotto Heaven Kings? Isn't that the voice of the human king? A Tomb Realm King frowned in disbelief. Don't talk nonsense. Another Peak Corpse King immediately interrupted him and said with a frown, how is that possible? Under that kind of attack just now, even if a quasi-emperor came, he wouldn't be able to survive. At this moment, a figure gradually appeared in the shattered starry sky. He wore a green robe and had black hair. One of his eyes was black and the other was white. He stood on a pair of yin and yang fishes. Behind him was a Qinglian that reached the heavens. His brows and eyes were lowered. He held a sword in one hand and a Buddhist seal in the other. He looked solemn and dignified as he chanted scriptures. Hiss! Seeing this scene, the crowd sucked in a mouthful of cold air. That human king was still alive. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King looked at each other in shock. Actually, the Spirit Dragon King and the others were right. A normal Anatta law was indeed only a Grotto Heaven level secret art. It was impossible to avoid the siege of thousands of Grotto Heaven Kings. The surrounding starry sky shattered and turned to dust. There was no place for Su Zimo to stand. However, Su Zimo had stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm and directly formed 5 Grotto Heavens. This caused his understanding of space to rise to an extremely high level, surpassing the Grotto Heaven realm. As for the Tai Yin Yang escape technique, it was a forbidden technique that also involved the Tao of space. These two space-related secret arts both came from the forbidden technique. When Su Zimo used his understanding of space to release these two secret arts at the same time and fuse them, a new secret art was born. Under the power of this secret art, Su Zimo's figure almost transformed into a special state. Su Zimo called it nothingness. In the nothingness state, he could avoid the attacks of thousands of Grotto Heaven Kings, because this secret art had touched on a different level of power. A forbidden technique. To be precise, with Su Zimo's current cultivation realm and his control of nothingness, this secret art could only be considered a quasi-forbidden technique. Limited by his cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to release a true forbidden technique. Even this quasi-forbidden technique consumed a lot of one's primordial spirit. Ordinary Peak Kings couldn't withstand it. He had the support of the Creation Lotus platform. His primordial spirit was constantly nourished, allowing him to withstand it. However, he still couldn't use this quasi-forbidden technique with just his primordial spirit. He also had to rely on the explosion of the 5 Grotto Heavens to force Su Zimo to enter the nothingness state and avoid all the attacks of thousands of Grotto Heaven Kings. Of course, this quasi-forbidden technique didn't increase Su Zimo's strength significantly. This was because this secret art was purely a defensive and dodging technique. It didn't increase his strength at all. However, under such circumstances, the nothingness secret art played a crucial role. Not only did Su Zimo avoid all the attacks, but he also used the nothingness secret art to preserve his bloodline phenomenon. His counterattack had just begun. On the other side, after a short period of shock, the thousands of Grotto Heaven Kings gradually accepted this fact. Even though they didn't know what had just happened, only peak kings like Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King vaguely guessed that Su Zimo's secret art might have touched upon a higher level of power. So what if he luckily escaped this calamity? A peak corpse king sneered. This secret art will definitely consume a lot of his energy. Moreover, he won't be able to use it a second time in a short period of time. When he comes out, we'll kill him again. Exactly. Many Grotto Heaven Kings agreed. This human king could dodge it once. But could he dodge it a second time or a third time? Everyone stared at Su Zimo without blinking. As long as Su Zimo escaped from that special state, they would attack at any time. At this moment, in the starry sky, Su Zimo used a divine ability. 3 more heads grew on his shoulders and 6 more arms grew on his sides. Supreme divine ability, 4 heads 8 arms. He held the Qingping sword in one hand, the Trijade Rui scepter in the other, and the Tai Horsetail whisk in the other. The other palms were either fists, palms, or hand seals. So what if he has 4 heads and 8 arms? Many Grotto Heaven Kings snorted disdainfully when they saw this scene. 4 heads and 8 arms could only display extremely powerful combat strength in one-on-one or close combat. In such a situation, even if he had 40 heads and 800 arms, it would be useless. Splash! At this moment, the Grotto Heaven Kings suddenly heard the sound of flowing water. Chapter 3068. In that shattered starry sky, a mysterious river appeared strangely. No one knew where it came from, or where it was headed to. It was dreamy and blurry. Everyone's gaze landed on this mysterious river. In that instant, they felt as if a lifetime had passed, as if the sea had turned into mulberry fields and mulberry seas into mulberry fields. At that moment, Su Zimo had already faded from his illusory state and returned to normal. He stepped on the mysterious river, and the image of a turtle and snake appeared beneath his feet, carrying him along with the waves. Boom! Before everyone could react, a loud bang sounded from Su Zimo's body, and 100,000 feet tall phantom rose from the ground. It had 4 heads and 8 arms, and was omnipresent. It stood side by side with the grade 12 creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon, and gradually fused. When the battle soul fused with the bloodline phenomenon, the starry sky trembled, and the weather changed. Su Zimo's aura surged as well. The release of the ancient and modern Dao technique caused Su Zimo's physique and bloodline power to increase by a terrifying 16 times. Just the grade 12 creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon alone was enough to fight against perfected Grotto Heavens. After fusing with the battle soul, the power of the phenomenon increased tremendously. Right now, with the augmentation of the ancient and modern Dao technique, its strength increased by 16 times. This meant that no Grotto Heavens could defend against Su Zimo's charge. The secret technique of the ancient and modern Dao was to make use of the long river of time, to cleanse one's body, and increase one's essence, spirit, and power of blood qi at the cost of one's lifespan. There were some flaws in that secret technique. For example, it consumed too much of one's lifespan, 10,000 years in a single breath. Even Grotto Heavenly Kings could only last for 100 breaths after releasing the ancient and modern Dao technique. That secret technique could not increase the power of the Grotto Heavens as well. If the Grotto Heavens wanted to transform, they would need the accumulation of heaven and earth essence qi and comprehension of Dao techniques. Even so, the ancient and modern Dao technique was still terrifying and could be said to be a supreme secret technique to increase one's combat strength. Exclamation point. In a flash, Su Zimo charged into the crowd and slashed forward with his Qingping sword. The perfected Grotto Heavens of the 3 peak kings shattered instantly and could not defend against it at all. Their bodies were sliced into 2 by the Qingping sword as well. Their essence spirits were struck by the sword qi and died on the spot. Even a peak king would not be able to block a single strike from Su Zimo. As for Su Zimo, with the help of his 4-headed and 8-armed state, when he slashed out with the Qingping sword, He raised the Tri-Jade Rui scepter and smashed it at anyone he saw. He controlled the Tai horsetail whisk and whipped everyone he saw. Bang! 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 The grotto heavens around him, big and small, simply could not stop Su Zimo's onslaught. Even though the Sanbao Rui scepter and the Tai horsetail whisk didn't have the sharpness of the Qingping sword, Su Zimo's combat strength skyrocketed with the help of the ancient and modern battle techniques. With a raise of his hand, he could defeat a peak grotto heaven expert. His 8 arms swung about, displaying all kinds of killing techniques. His fists, palms, fingers, elbows, knees, from head to toe. There wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't a lethal weapon. Many peak-tier kings wanted to gather as many people as possible to surround and kill Su Zimo. As long as thousands of grotto heaven kings worked together, they would definitely have a chance of severely injuring him. However, in the chaos, before they could organize themselves, Su Zimo had already charged over and scattered the crowd. Before the crowd behind him could even touch the corner of Su Zimo's clothes, he had already killed his way elsewhere. As such, the thousands of grotto heaven kings were unable to form an effective encirclement. No one could stop Su Zimo's onslaught. They couldn't even delay him for a moment. With the battle soul behind him and the enhancement of his bloodline phenomenon, Su Zimo, who was in his 4-headed and 8-armed state, rampaged through the crowd. He was unstoppable. He was simply a human-shaped killing machine. Everywhere he went, people were thrown off their feet, blood spewed, grotto heavens shattered and wails filled the air. If anyone blocked him, he would kill them. If Buddha blocked him, he would kill Buddha. Battle corpses, perfected grotto heavens, divine weapons and spirit treasures were all blocked by Su Zimo's 8 arms, and the Qingping sword, Tri-Jade Rui scepter, Tai horsetail whisk, and 9 heaven life soil. It's the Dozhan Emperor's taboo secret manual, the Dozhan Catalog. A peak-tier king recognized the origin of this secret technique and exclaimed, "The Dozhan Catalog had been lost for many years." In this life, even some of the grotto heavenly kings present had heard of this taboo secret manual, but they didn't know how powerful it was. It was only now that everyone truly felt how terrifying the Dozhan Catalog was. On planet Torch Dragon, the dragons were dumbfounded when they saw this scene, unable to recover for a long time. It's actually the Dozhan Catalog. No wonder. The Spirit Dragon King sighed. Legend has it that during the Dozhan era, the Dozhan Emperor relied on this secret technique to be invincible among his peers. Now that I've seen it, he truly lives up to his reputation. However, I heard that the secret technique in the Dozhan Catalog requires one to pay an irreversible price. The Radiant Dragon King revealed a worried expression. The Spirit Dragon King nodded. Such a powerful secret technique can't be used casually. It's said that every breath will reduce one's lifespan by 10,000 years. The Radiant Dragon King said. In that case, after 100 breaths, this Su Zimo will die from exhaustion of his lifespan before anyone else can make a move. The Spirit Dragon King sighed softly and nodded. At the same time, on the star battlefield, some peak-tier kings also learned of this matter and reminded loudly, "Fellow Taoists, don't panic. Avoid him first. This secret technique reduces one's lifespan by 10,000 years per breath. As long as we last for 100 breaths, this person will definitely die." The original battlefield was already in chaos, and thousands of heavenly abode kings had been utterly defeated. However, hearing this, the king's spirits were lifted, and their hope and fighting spirit were reignited. 100 breaths would pass in the blink of an eye. Could they not hold on? They couldn't afford to offend him, but couldn't they just hide? Thinking of this, the kings turned around and fled, avoiding all directions. However, the surrounding space had already been sealed. During the battle, space had been shattered. Not only were they unable to tear open the void to leave, but they also couldn't use any spatial teleportation talismans. They could only rely on their movement techniques to flee. However, their movement techniques and speed were no match for Su Zimo's at all. Su Zimo unleashed his ethereal wings, wind and lightning wings, earth-traversing golden light, rock wings and many other movement techniques. Coupled with his terrifying blood chi, he floated in the river of time, traveling 10,000 miles with each step. Under this starry sky, No one could escape Su Zimo's slaughter. Not only that, but Su Zimo's attacks also became even more violent and ferocious. One of his eyes turned black and one of them white. He used the horsetail whisk in his hand to write 12 strange runes in the void, quickly condensing 12 terrifying heavenly gods. Su Zimo stood on a tortoise snake. His black hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like lightning. He had 4 heads and 8 arms, and 12 heavenly gods surrounded him. His aura was monstrous and unparalleled. Everywhere he passed, only corpses were left behind, and paths of blood were left. The dragons on planet Illumination Dragon looked at the battlefield outside in shock. For words suddenly flashed through their minds. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. This scene was like a huge wheel crushing through the starry sky, leaving behind blood-colored tracks. Thousands of grotto heavenly kings were merely mantises, waving their arms in front of the wheel. They were so tiny and weak. It was only at this moment that everyone truly understood the meaning of Su Zimo's previous words. Chapter 3069. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths had passed. The battlefield in space was already littered with corpses and rivers of blood. In just a few breaths of time, the number of grotto heaven kings that had fallen had already reached hundreds. This meant that in a breath of time, the number of grotto heaven kings that had died at Su Zimo's hands had reached an average of 10. In his 4-headed, 8-armed state, Su Zimo unleashed his killing techniques to the extreme. Together with the 12 6 Ding and 6 Jia gods, he charged into the crowd and was invincible. With the augmentation of the ancient and modern battle techniques, the power of Su Zimo's essence soul also increased exponentially. This meant that the 6 Ding and 6 Jia gods had already surpassed peak kings in terms of close combat strength. Following behind Su Zimo destroyed the surrounding grotto heavens of the group of peak kings, while the 6 Ding and 6 Jia gods swarmed forward. Brandishing their spears and swords, they killed the kings that had lost the protection of their grotto heavens like chopping vegetables. Initially, when the grotto heaven kings had gathered together, Su Zimo could even kill dozens of kings in a breath of time with his 4-headed, 8-armed state, and the 12 6 Ding and 6 Jia gods. However, as the kings fled in all directions and spread out, this number decreased drastically. "Let's go." The spirit dragon king seemed to have made a decision as he said in a deep voice, "Everyone, follow me and kill our way out. We will take advantage of this opportunity to turn defeat into victory." Among the dozens of dragon kings, a few immediately stood up and responded. "Wait." A dragon king stood up and stopped everyone. He frowned and said, "Everyone, don't be anxious. I'm afraid it's useless to rush out now. Everyone, think about it. This Su Zimo is indeed invincible in his current state. However, he can only last for 100 breaths at most. Now dozens of breaths have already passed. At this speed, Su Zimo can only kill about 1,000 grotto heavenly kings in 100 breaths of time. Everyone, don't forget that there are a total of 5,000 kings outside. He can't kill them all." When the dozens of dragon kings heard this, their hearts trembled. The dragon kings that were eager to give it a try also gradually calmed down. The situation was indeed as such. Even if that human king killed 1,000 grotto heavenly kings, there would still be 4,000 kings left. Compared to the dozens of dragon kings on planet Torch Dragon, there was still a gap of time. The spirit dragon king and the radiant dragon king glanced at each other. They both hesitated. On the battlefield, 100 breaths of time, of course. In the blink of an eye, 100 breaths of time had passed, and the number of grotto heaven kings that had perished had reached a terrifying 1,000. Some of the fleeing grotto heaven monarchs heaved sighs of relief. That human king looks so murderous. He doesn't look old at all. Just now, they were only focused on running for their lives and didn't dare to look back. They stopped and looked at Su Zimo. To their surprise, the human king still had black hair and green robes. His face was ruddy, and his aura was powerful. His vitality was boundless. Exclamation point. The group of grotto heavenly kings had just stopped to look when Su Zimo arrived. Together with the 12 6 Ding and 6 Jia gods, He killed all the Grotto Heavenly Kings. When the kings saw this, they gasped in shock. How did this person show any signs of his lifespan being exhausted? He was clearly still in peak condition. The peak-level king who had shouted for everyone to stay calm and avoid the brunt of the attack was also somewhat confused at this moment. However, they still had more than 4,000 kings left. They couldn't retreat just like that. Everyone listen to me. This person's lifespan is indeed decreasing rapidly. I think he's just an arrow at the end of its flight. The Pinnacle King raised his voice. We still have more than 4,000 kings. As long as we stall for time, he definitely won't be able to hold on. As soon as he finished speaking, a golden light appeared. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Su Zimo descended with the 12 merciless heavenly gods. In an instant, they surrounded and killed the Pinnacle King. Although this monarch had perished, his words still had some effect on the situation. Many Grotto Heavenly Kings didn't make up their minds to escape. They still wanted to stall for time and continue watching. At this point in the battle, Su Zimo naturally couldn't stop. If he stopped, he would be the one to die. Apart from the Tomb Realm, there were also the Rui Realm, Ancient Realm, Gold Realm, Flying Star Realm, Blazing Feather Realm, Empty Realm. Su Zimo couldn't remember all the kings of the various realms. Actually, the Dragon King was right. If he were to kill more than 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings, he wouldn't be able to kill them all. However, since the start of the battle, Su Zimo's first goal had been to kill as many Pinnacle Kings as possible. He had long noticed that among the 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings, there were only about 400 Pinnacle Kings. As long as he killed more than 400 Grotto Heavenly Kings within the time limit of the ancient and modern battle secret technique, the rest were nothing to fear. Moreover, the time he used the ancient and modern battle was far more than 100 breaths. Normal Grotto Heavenly Kings had a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. When Su Zimo became a king and condensed 5 Grotto Heavens, he could already sense that his lifespan had increased exponentially, reaching an astonishing 5,000,000 years. This was his greatest reliance for using the ancient and modern battle secret technique. If not for his 5,000,000 years of lifespan as his foundation, he would have long left the ancient and modern battle state. It was impossible for him to fight until now. After 100 breaths, his lifespan had decreased by 1,000,000 years. However, to Su Zimo, who had a lifespan of 5,000,000 years, he was still at the peak of his age. That was why there were no signs of aging. The battle continued. To be precise, it was a one-sided slaughter. No Grotto Heavenly King could withstand Su Zimo's slaughter. After 100 breaths, another 50 breaths passed. Actually, the time was very short. However, to the kings who could lose their lives at any time, every breath seemed incomparably long. Originally, they could still hold on. They only thought that after 100 breaths, Su Zimo's lifespan would be exhausted, and they would naturally win without a fight. However, just now, 100 breaths had passed, and Su Zimo's battle prowess was still the same. They were still waiting, holding on to the slightest bit of hope. However, after another 50 breaths, Su Zimo's body still showed no signs of aging. His battle prowess was still at its peak. What was even more serious was that some kings had already noticed that among the more than 1,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings who had died, nearly 300 were Pinnacle Kings. If all the remaining Pinnacle Kings were to die, even if there was no ancient and modern battle, who would be able to stop this person? The Grotto Heavenly Kings gradually couldn't hold on any longer, and had the intention to retreat. Chapter 3070. Some of the remaining peak-tier kings had yet to give up, and were plotting a final gamble. After all, they had more than 3,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings left, and had sufficient numbers. Humiliation was one thing. More importantly, they were truly indignant if they were to return dejectedly. There was no way anything could go wrong with the Illumination Dragon King, coordinating the invasion of the Illumination Dragon domain with the Tomb Realm. However, who would have thought that a human king would appear out of thin air and release such shocking combat strength? Up till this point of the battle, more than 1,000 kings had already died in less than 100 breaths. He was alone. That was the thought that lingered in the minds of the remaining peak-tier kings. The peak-tier kings communicated with each other, using their spirit consciousnesses, and soon decided to join forces to fight. If they failed, they would escape immediately. Suddenly, an extremely intense spirit consciousness fluctuation appeared in the cosmos. Dozens of peak-tier kings joined forces once more, and channeled their essence spirit secret skills, at the same time, to attack Su Zimo with their spirit consciousness. Naturally, they witnessed how Su Zimo wielded the Qingping sword to severely injure the corpse god king. However, no matter how strong the Qingping sword was, it could not defend against their combined attacks. Furthermore, up till this point of the battle, Su Zimo had been maintaining his powerful combat strength, using such a terrifying secret skill. The power of his essence spirit must have been greatly depleted. In his four-headed and eight-armed state, this person was invincible in melee combat. His essence spirit might be their only chance to turn the tables. If they saw that the situation was bad, they could retreat at any time. Dozens of essence spirit secret skills of peak-tier kings tore through the air silently. Wherever they passed, the cosmos trembled and ripples appeared like the surface of a lake. Su Zimo touched his glabella gently with his fingertip and conjured a secret skill. Channeling his essence spirit, a dragon scale appeared and blocked in front of him. Reverse scale. Upon seeing this secret technique, the dragons immediately recognized it and exclaimed with strange expressions. The dozens of essence spirit secret skills collided with the reverse scale silently. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. The dozens of peak-tier kings shuddered and grunted in pain. As they had expected, Su Zimo's power of essence spirit was indeed greatly depleted. Otherwise, this reverse scale alone would be enough to kill them all. The primordial spirits of several dozen peak king level experts were impacted, causing their consciousness to go blank for a brief moment. Seizing this opportunity, Su Zimo descended from the sky with the 12 heavenly deities. Like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, they slaughtered in all directions. This scene was like the last straw in everyone's heart. The remaining 3,000 or so Grotto Heaven kings trembled with fear, and their spirits completely collapsed. All thoughts of resisting and counterattacking instantly vanished, and they fled madly into the distance, utterly defeated. Su Zimo stood in the starry sky, and did not continue to pursue. He dispersed the battle soul, and let out a sigh of relief. If these Grotto Heaven kings were all unafraid of death, it would be very difficult for him to stop them. However, after reaching the Grotto Heaven realm, no one wanted to die so easily. More than 100 realms joined forces. The various kings wanted to plunder the dragon realm and gain some benefits. No one wanted to throw their lives away. A starry sky not far from Torch Dragon Planet suddenly split open. The hornless dragon king walked out of it, his footsteps somewhat staggering. Her face was pale and her body reeked of blood. It was clear that she was severely injured. However, her gaze was cold as she merely took a deep breath of air. Ignoring her injuries, she sped towards Torch Dragon Planet with all her might. The hornless dragon region had already fallen. Although she sensed the danger in advance and retreated towards Dragon Island with her clansmen, she was still hunted down by the armies of the Blood World and more than 100 other realms. The dragons suffered heavy losses. Only half of her clansmen managed to reach Dragon Island alive. Thereafter, she received news from Long Li. A single look at it, and the hornless dragon king understood what happened. Burning with anxiety, she tore through the void and wanted to descend onto Torch Dragon Planet. However, the space around Torch Dragon Planet was sealed, and she could only rush over from a nearby starry sky. With that delay, the hornless dragon king already had an ominous premonition. The betrayal of a few dragons in the hornless dragon region was enough to cause the region to fall and suffer heavy losses. If the Torch Dragon King betrayed the dragons, all her clansmen in the Torch Dragon region would be massacred. It would be difficult for Long Li and the others to leave alive as well. It's over for the dragons. A sense of sorrow rose in the hornless dragon king's heart as she recalled everything that happened today. How did the dragons end up in this state? Before she arrived at Torch Dragon Planet, the hornless dragon king smelled a strong stench of blood. Although she had expected it, her heart still sank. If Lear met with misfortune as well, the hornless Dragon King gripped her fists tightly and could not calm her anger. She could not help but roar into the skies and let out a shrill and hoarse dragon roar. Roar! Before long, a dragon roar sounded from the direction of Torch Dragon Planet as well. That voice belonged to Longli. The hornless Dragon King was stunned for a moment before joy surged on her face. She quickened her pace and rushed towards Torch Dragon Planet. Lear was still alive. Before long, the hornless Dragon King arrived near Torch Dragon Planet. Mother! On Torch Dragon Planet, Longli waved his arms and shouted. When the hornless Dragon King saw that Longli was fine, she was finally relieved. At that moment, she finally noticed the tragic and bloody battlefield around her. The corpses of many Grotto Heaven kings floated in the cosmos with their blood still warm. Countless storage bags and Grotto Heaven fragments were scattered everywhere. At a glance, the blood of kings filled the cosmos for thousands of kilometers, in an extremely shocking manner. In that tragic battlefield, there was only a single living person who was walking and stopping. It was a person who looked frail and did not match the atmosphere of the battlefield. Dressed in green robes and with black hair, he had refined features and a calm expression, exuding a scholarly aura. The green-robed man was cleaning up the battlefield and collecting the storage bags and Grotto Heaven fragments that were left behind. Naturally, the hornless Dragon King recognized Su Zimo. However, she did not know what happened earlier on. Her clansmen on Torch Dragon Planet were safe and sound. However, there were no dragons that died in the cosmos. They were all kings of other races like the Tomb Realm. That was right. An Emperor Lord of the Dragons must have arrived in time and destroyed more than 1,000 kings to protect Torch Dragon Planet. However, on second thought, the hornless Dragon King was confused. If an Emperor Lord of the Dragons killed a king of other races, why was Su Zimo the one cleaning up the battlefield, while the other Dragon Kings watched without anyone stepping forward? Furthermore, the Dragon Kings were looking at Su Zimo strangely. There was even a hint of fear in their eyes. Mother, you're injured? Longli went up and asked in concern. I'm fine. The hornless Dragon King shook her head and asked, which Emperor Lord of the Dragons saved you guys? I have to thank him personally. Emperor Lord of the Dragons? Longli was stunned for a moment before smiling. There's no Emperor Lord of the Dragons. It was Brother Su who saved Torch Dragon Planet and the millions of clansmen here. Brother Su. The hornless Dragon King frowned slightly and asked in confusion. Which Brother Su? It's Su Zimo. Oh, he's also Brother Su Zhu. Longli looked at Su Zimo, who was in the cosmos battlefield. The hornless Dragon King followed Longli's gaze and saw Su Zimo turning around as well. This slightly scholarly human cultivator nodded at her and smiled warmly. The hornless Dragon King was speechless. Chapter 3071. You mean to say that fellow Taoist, Su helped kill a few Grotto Heavens? The hornless Dragon King turned to look at Longli and asked again. No. Longli said seriously. The 1,000-odd Grotto Heavens outside were all killed by Brother Su in less than 100 breaths. The remaining 3,000-odd Grotto Heavens and the army of billions were all scared away. At that moment, the hornless Dragon King's mind was blank as he blinked his dragon eyes in confusion. If he had not witnessed it personally, who would have thought that more than 1,000 Grotto Heavens would die in the hands of an ordinary human king? The hornless Dragon King turned to look at the Spirit Dragon King, the Brilliant Dragon King, and the others with a questioning look. The Spirit Dragon King coughed gently and said, Lear is right. Just now fellow Taoist Su stepped in and killed everyone. That's why the Illumination Dragon Planet was saved. The other Dragon Kings did not say anything, tacitly agreeing. Although the hornless Dragon King could not believe it, he still took a deep breath and tried his best to digest this matter. A moment later, the hornless Dragon King gradually calmed down. As though he had thought of something, he looked at the Spirit Dragon King and the others and asked with a frown, You guys were just watching over here and didn't help? The Spirit Dragon King, the Brilliant Dragon King, and the other Dragon Kings blushed in shame. We're ashamed. The Spirit Dragon King sighed. It's not our fault. A Dragon King raised his brows slightly and said, This battle ended too quickly in less than 100 breaths. We wanted to help, but we couldn't react in time. Tui. Monkey could not take it any longer. He scoffed and scolded. You bunch of dragons are cowardly and afraid of death. You've been discussing for so long, but no one dares to help. All you do is watch from the side. Why are you acting innocent now? Stupid monkey, who are you scolding? You foreign race, who are you calling cowardly? It's not up to a monkey like you to criticize our dragon race. The dragon kings who were cowering in the face of the Tomb Realm army earlier on were enraged and stood out. The Spirit Dragon King and the Brilliant Dragon King looked at the Dragon Kings and felt ashamed. Shut up, all of you, the Spirit Dragon King hollered. Spirit Dragon King, what is the meaning of this? The Dragon Kings were still unwilling to give up and kept pestering him. At this time, Su Zimo finished cleaning up the battlefield, landed on Torch Dragon, and walked over. The Dragon Kings immediately quieted down. What were you arguing about? Su Zimo asked calmly. His gaze turned and landed on the Dragon Kings. The Dragon Kings remained silent. They lowered their heads subconsciously and avoided eye contact. No one dared to look him in the eye. Baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the weak, subservient to the strong. At the sight of this, Monkey's face was filled with disdain as he spat. When the dragons heard this, they felt extremely uncomfortable, but they couldn't say anything. The original dragons were not like this. The Nightmare Dragon King bowed deeply at Su Zimo and said, Fellow Taoist Su Zimo, this dragon will remember your kindness. There's no need for that. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and supported the Nightmare Dragon King's body gently. Back then, the Hornless Dragon King had helped him outside the Celestial Tribute world as well. He remembered everything. Su Zimo cupped his fists. I was forced to get involved in this battle today, and had no choice. Since we know that you're fine, we'll bid farewell now. Although he helped Torch Dragon region resolve the crisis, Su Zimo was still unwilling to get involved in the battle between dragons and phoenixes. Just now, he was fighting outside, and the dragons were watching the battle on Torch Dragon Planet. He was already extremely disappointed. Now that he saw that Long Li and the Nightmare Dragon King were fine, he did not intend to stay any longer. The survival of the dragons had nothing to do with him in the future. Suddenly, two massive suppressive auras descended and enveloped the skies of Torch Dragon Planet. Immediately after, the voids tore open and two figures with terrifying auras, a man and a woman, appeared. They looked down at the battlefield from above. Emperor Realm experts. Furthermore, there were two Dragon Emperors. Greetings, Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and Frost Dragon Emperor. The dozens of Dragon Kings were shocked when they saw the two Dragon Emperors, and turned to greet them hurriedly. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor had a head of scarlet hair, and was clearly from the Illumination Dragon lineage. His gaze was like a torch and his body burned with flames as he descended slowly. The Frost Dragon Emperor was an old woman with long grayish-white hair. She had a cold expression, and held a crystalline frost scepter in her hands, as she descended on Torch Dragon Planet as well. Master, the Hornless Dragon King went forward and bowed, asking, How's the battle of the Emperors on Dragon Island? The Frost Dragon Emperor hesitated for a moment before replying, We've won for now. The Hornless Dragon King could tell that the Frost Dragon Emperor's tone was heavy and guessed that the situation on Dragon Island was not optimistic. The reason why the Emperor Lords of the Dragon World were able to force back the Emperor Lords of the Wutong World, Blood World, and many other worlds temporarily was because of the power of the dragon souls that were buried on Dragon Island for countless years. Since ancient times, the Dragon Emperors would be buried on Dragon Island after their deaths. Although they were dead, a wisp of dragon soul would remain. Without sentience, it would be eternal and protect the final habitat of the dragons. Although the Wutong world had retreated temporarily in this battle of the emperors, their dragon souls were greatly depleted. By the time the Wutong world recuperated and adjusted themselves, Dragon Island would not be able to defend against the emperors once more. What about the other dragon regions? The Hornless Dragon King asked again. The Frost Dragon Emperor's expression darkened. The 4 dragon regions have all fallen. It was clear that the Wutong world and hundreds of other worlds had planned for this large-scale attack for a long time. The Frost Dragon Emperor looked around in surprise and said, "The Candle Dragon Star was actually defended. That's a little surprising." The Hornless Dragon King said hurriedly, "It's all because of fellow Taoist Su that Torch Dragon Planet and the millions of clansmen here were saved." Oh, it was only at this moment that the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and the Frost Dragon Emperor turned to Su Zimo. Right from the beginning, the two Emperor Lords had not even spared them a single glance. Hornless Dragon King, don't brag too highly about this foreign race. The Dragon King, who was silent earlier, regained his confidence when he saw the arrival of the Dragon Emperor and said, "The reason why Torch Dragon Planet and the hundreds of dragons were saved is all because the Dragon Emperors were fighting against the Emperor Lords of the Wutong world on Dragon Island. If not for the Dragon Emperors fighting a bloody battle, how much use could a king of a foreign race be?" Monkey's eyes widened and his lungs were about to explode. The Longli could not take it any longer and could not help but say, "What are you talking about? How dare you erase Brother Su's credit with just a few words?" "I'm speaking the truth," the Dragon King sneered. "The Dragon Emperors are the ones who deserve the most credit for this battle. Do you mean to say that this king of a foreign race is inferior to the Dragon Emperors?" The Spirit Dragon King, Radiant Dragon King, and the others remained silent. Actually, they knew what was going on as well. However, since the Dragon King had pushed the credit to the Dragon Emperors, they could not refute him. Now that the Dragon King had pinned such a huge crime on him, the Longli could not take it at all. Longli wanted to say more, but the Hornless Dragon King pulled her back and shook his head gently. Chapter 3072. Fire Dragon King. The Dragon Emperors fought a bloody battle on Dragon Island and naturally deserve great credit, the Hornless Dragon King said in a deep voice. However, without fellow Taoist Su, the Illumination Dragon Planet could not hold out until the Dragon Emperors arrived. There's no conflict between the two matters to begin with. Compared to Longli, the Fire Dragon King's reply was clearly much more experienced and flawless, leaving no openings for the Fire Dragon King to use against him. Actually, there have been frequent internal conflicts between the dragons over the years as well. Their words were often laced with sabers and swords. If one was careless and gave the other party a handle, they would be accused of a heinous crime with an extremely tragic outcome. Just now, if Longli did not deal with it properly and fell into the Fire Dragon King's trap, he might be accused of being disrespectful and traitorous. This was something that was unimaginable among the dragons of the past, and was extremely preposterous. However, it happened time and time again over the years, and the dragons were all in danger. The Hornless Dragon King had seen many such scenes, and naturally knew how dangerous it was. Su Zimo did not care about the merits, and could not be bothered to argue with the other party. "Everyone, I'll be taking my leave." Su Zimo could not be bothered to exchange pleasantries, nor was he willing to stay here. He merely cupped his fists and turned to leave with Long Ran and Monkey. Now that he had taken Long Ran away, he had achieved his goal in this trip to the dragon world. A bunch of ingrates. The anger in Monkey's eyes had yet to dissipate as he harumphed coldly. "What did you say?" Immediately, a few Dragon Kings stood out and hollered, "Forget it, he's just complaining. Let him be." The Spirit Dragon King stood out hurriedly to smooth things over, worried that something else might happen. The Hornless Dragon King did not mention anything about merits either. Given the current situation of the dragons, it might not be a bad thing for Su Zimo and the others to leave earlier. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor glared at Su Zimo's departing figure and narrowed his eyes with a cold glint. "You can't leave." Su Zimo was about to tear open the void and leave the Illumination Dragon domain, when the Fire Dragon King suddenly stood out and blocked the three of them with an unfriendly expression. "Fire Dragon King, what are you doing?" The Hornless Dragon King could not stand it any longer and shouted, "What did I do?" The Hua Dragon King was extremely calm. He sneered and said, "Why don't you ask your precious daughter what she did on the Torch Dragon Planet with this foreign being? What's the matter? Why don't you just say it?" The Frost Dragon Emperor frowned. The Zhua Dragon King said solemnly, Long Li brought this outsider king to meet the Torch Dragon King. Not long after, the Torch Dragon King died at the hands of this outsider king. The Hornless Dragon King's heart sank as he instinctively looked at Long Li. Nonsense. Long Li hurriedly explained. It's because we discovered that the Illumination Dragon King was cursed and betrayed the dragon race. After Brother Su suppressed him, he wanted to use a soul-searching technique on him, causing the curse in the Illumination Dragon King's essence spirit to erupt, and he died. Hee, the Hua Dragon King sneered. As the lord of a region, the Torch Dragon King has worked hard and made great contributions. He has lived in the dragon world for so many years without any problems. However, when you paid him a visit, you discovered that he was cursed. What a coincidence that the army of the Tomb Realm arrived right after the Torch Dragon King was killed. Naturally, those two matters were unrelated. However, the fact that the Hua Dragon King connected the two matters together on purpose was naturally suspicious. Long Li declared loudly, "That's the truth." The Hornless Dragon King said deeply, "Indeed, there were dragons in the Hornless Dragon region who were disloyal and destroyed the Coiling Dragon formation to lure the Blood World in." The Spirit Dragon King stood out as well. "We were not present when the Torch Dragon King died. However, we witnessed the Fire Dragon King being cursed personally." Both the Hornless Dragon King and Spirit Dragon King were speaking up for Su Zimo. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo watched coldly from the sidelines without saying a single word. In fact, he did not even try to defend himself. There was no need to explain at all. If he had not made a move, the Torch Dragon planet would have been destroyed. There was no way he would have anything to do with the army of the Tomb Realm. Any normal person would be able to understand the reason. If he had to prove his innocence for something as such, the dragons would be rotten to the core. Unfortunately, there were two dragon emperors present. Otherwise, he might have tried to suppress the Bright Dragon King and capture his primordial spirit to take a look. The dragons will investigate whether the Torch Dragon King is cursed. Burning Dragon King spoke slowly with a hint of solemnity. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor spoke slowly with a dignified tone. However, even if he's cursed and betrayed the dragon race, the dragon race should be the one to judge and punish him. Other races shouldn't interfere. None of you can leave without an explanation. The Hornless Dragon King's heart sank as he said hurriedly, "Lord Burning Sun, although the Torch Dragon King died because of him, fellow Taoist Su did contribute to protecting the Torch Dragon planet." Of course I know." Before the Torch Dragon King could finish, the Burning Sun Dragon Emperor interrupted him coldly. "Do you think he would have survived until now if not for that?" At that point, the Hornless Dragon King did not dare to say anything else, and could only look at the Frost Dragon Emperor for help. The Frost Dragon Emperor sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. "This is difficult. After all, he's one of the 5 Dragon Kings, and he was killed by a foreign race." The Hornless Dragon King was anxious as well. The Torch Dragon King was cursed and betrayed the dragons. He deserved death. What does it matter if he was killed by a foreign race or a fellow race? The Frost Dragon Emperor sighed gently. Indeed, it didn't matter in the past. In fact, the dragons would even thank him. However, after thousands of years, the Frost Dragon Emperor did not continue. For thousands of years, the environment for dragons had deteriorated rapidly, and it was common for them to distort the truth, and the truth, she was already numb to it. Even fellow races would fight against each other, let alone foreign races. The Torch Dragon King said in a deep voice, "We don't know if the Torch Dragon King was cursed yet. However, this foreign race killed the Torch Dragon King and caused the Torch Dragon planet to be leaderless. The strong enemies of the Tomb Realm almost took advantage of this and invaded. He deserves death." The Hornless Dragon King and the others were shocked when they heard that. The Torch Dragon King wanted Su Zimo's life. Monkey clenched his fists tightly and hollered in rage. "How can there be such a ridiculous thing in this world? My brother has just saved you guys, and you guys want to kill him in return." "Nobody wants to kill him," the Torch Dragon Emperor replied coldly. "A life for a life. That's the simplest logic. Human, what else do you have to say?" The Torch Dragon Emperor looked down at Su Zimo from above, as though he was about to attack at the next moment. The Longli was so anxious that she was crying. She truly did not expect that Su Zimo would be killed by an Emperor Lord instead of dying in the encirclement of thousands of grotto heavens, in the Tomb Realm, after arriving in the Dragon World. I have nothing to say. Suddenly Su Zimo smiled. I'm not leaving. Right from the beginning, he did not want to be embroiled in the war between dragons and phoenixes. After finding Long Ran, he merely wanted to leave as soon as possible. However, he had no choice and fought 2 huge battles in Beacon City and outside the Torch Dragon planet. Even so, he did not want any credit and merely wanted to leave. It was only at this moment when the dragons were overbearing that he made up his mind. He wanted to see just how bad the dragons were. And who was the one stirring up trouble behind the scenes? You want to fight me in techniques? Come and try then. Chapter 3073. Su Zimo did not try to defend himself or beg for mercy. He had a calm expression the entire time, which was somewhat beyond Burning Sun Dragon Emperor's expectations. Right then, the Frost Dragon Emperor suddenly spoke. This matter is complicated. I think we should head to Dragon Island and ask the Dragon Emperors and the Realm Lord to make a decision. That's right. The Horned Dragon King nodded hurriedly. Indeed, we should ask the Dragon Emperors to discuss this matter before making a decision. No matter what, this was Su Zimo's last hope, and there was still some leeway. It was much better than being killed by the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor here. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor stared at the Frost Dragon Emperor for a while before chuckling. That's good too. We'll let this foreign race die convinced. The Horned Dragon King and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Long Ran, Long Li and the others were still worried. Su Zimo was the only one who looked calm, as though he was not worried about his situation at all. Long Ran's expression was solemn as he secretly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Zimo, ask Wu Dao's true body to come over right now. He should be able to reach the Dragon World within a day. When we reach Dragon Island later, don't get into a head-on conflict with the other party. We'll try our best to stall for time and wait for Wu Dao's true body to come to support us. Su Zimo merely smiled and did not comment. Wu Dao's true body would not leave easily because he was about to break through to the Martial Emperor realm in the Origin Martial Grotto Heaven and to protect Daiyu. If his true body wanted to descend to the Dragon World, he could do so with a single thought. The 4 dragon territories were lost, and the Torch Dragon planet was the only one left in the Torch Dragon territory. The Coiling Dragon formation was already destroyed, and there was no point in guarding the Torch Dragon planet. Therefore, the hundreds of dragons on the Torch Dragon planet boarded a gigantic dragon boat and headed to Dragon Island with the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and the Frost Dragon Emperor. Su Zimo and the others were among them. Fellow Taoist Su, I'm sorry. The Horned Dragon King looked at Su Zimo with guilt. This human king had just saved hundreds of his clansmen and his daughter. Now that he was framed, his fate was uncertain. Long Li's eyes were red from crying. He stood in front of Su Zimo and the others, not knowing what to say. The Horned Dragon King said, I just asked the Spirit Dragon King, the Radiant Dragon King, and the others. They agreed to testify for you. There shouldn't be any problems on this trip to Dragon Island. Even so, the Hornless Dragon King knew very well that the true decision of Su Zimo's fate lay with the Dragon Emperors, or the Master of the Dragon World. I'm fine. You don't have to worry. Su Zimo smiled. The Hornless Dragon King was stunned. Shouldn't she be the one comforting Su Zimo instead? For a moment, she couldn't understand why Su Zimo was so relaxed. Perhaps he was just pretending to be calm. Otherwise, what else could he do? How did Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor become like this? Longli couldn't help but say, You're simply distorting the truth. You're completely unreasonable. The Hornless Dragon King sighed deeply and said, I'm not sure either. In my impression, the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was not like this. Who knew that his temperament would change so drastically and become like this? Great Desolate World. After the Battle of the Great Desolate World, peace returned to the Great Desolate World. The living beings of the thousands of races rested, and were thriving with vitality. Butterfly Valley. Wu Dao's true body woke up slowly from his seclusion and opened his eyes. Dai sat beside him in a blood-red robe and adjusted her breathing motionlessly with her eyes closed. Her side profile was fair and flawless without any makeup. However, she exuded a heart-pounding beauty. Wu Dao's true body felt a sense of warmth in his heart. Even if he were to accompany Dai like this without saying anything, he would feel a sense of satisfaction and peace that he had never felt before. "What are you looking at?" As though she sensed something, Dai opened her eyes and turned to look. The two of them exchanged glances and smiled. Dai was meticulous. Although Wu Dao's true body did not say anything, she could tell that something was on his mind through the eyes of Wu Dao's true body. "What happened?" Dai asked. Wu Dao's true body pondered for a moment and did not hide anything. He explained roughly what happened to Qinglian's true body in the dragon world. "There's such a thing." Dai frowned slightly and said in deep thought. "The situation with the dragons is indeed a little strange. It's extremely different from the dragons in my impression. The witch race should be behind this," Wu Dao's true body said in a deep voice. "Among the 100 emperor lords that invaded the great desolate world, there were 2 horse-monkey emperor lords who were cursed, similar to the situation of the Illumination Dragon King." After pondering for a moment, Wu Dao's true body asked, "Is there any curse in the witch race that can cause one's personality to change?" Dai's heart skipped a beat, as though she had thought of something. A hint of fear flashed through her beautiful eyes as she nodded. "Legend has it that there is indeed a curse. However, that was an extremely long time ago. In fact, it had to be traced back to the birth of the witch race a few eras ago." "Oh!" The eyes of Wu Dao's true body lit up. Dai recalled. "I've only seen some records of the witch race in an ancient ruin. It said that there were no signs of the birth of the witch race, and it was as though they appeared out of thin air. The leader of the witch race was the person known as the Emperor Lord Dark Magus of that era." "Emperor Lord Dark Magus?" Wu Dao's true body murmured softly. He had no impression of that title, and had never heard of it. However, he still thought of something else. Dai said, "Back then, the Emperor Lord Dark Magus was the person with the greatest hope of becoming an emperor. However, he was still a step away. There's naturally no need to elaborate on the combat strength of the Emperor Lord Dark Magus. However, what truly terrified the living beings of the 10,000 races was that he possessed a secret skill known as the Yin Shin Curse. It's said that the Yin Shin Curse can control one's heart and will. Living beings who are cursed by the Yin Shin Curse will not show any signs of it on the surface. However, as time passes, those who are cursed will be imperceptibly influenced by the will of the caster and gradually lose themselves, their rationality, and will be manipulated by others. There's such an evil Dao technique in the world." Wu Dao's true body narrowed his eyes and murmured softly. Dai nodded as well. Compared to restraining one's body, controlling one's heart and will, it's naturally much more terrifying. Therefore, the witch race was later besieged by many worlds and faced a calamity of annihilation. The Emperor Lord Dark Magus died as well. However, for some reason, after that era ended, the witch race would revive in the next era. Of course, after the death of the Emperor Lord Dark Magus, the Yin Shin Curse was lost, and no one pursued this matter anymore. Wu Dao's true body pondered and said, "From the looks of it, some of the dragons should have been cursed by the Yin Shin Curse and lost themselves and their rationality. That's a little strange as well." Dai continued. "Although the Yin Shin Curse is evil, the conditions for casting it are rather harsh. As long as the target is prepared, it will be difficult for the Yin Shin Curse to succeed. There are many experts among the dragons. How can they be manipulated by the experts of the witch race?" Chapter 3074. Qinglian is in trouble over there. "Head over and take a look," Dai said. "If the witch race is truly behind this, and the curse of Yin Sheng has reappeared, the dragons can't be blamed for their plight. I've been to the dragon world once. Although the dragons are arrogant, they're not bad by nature, and will repay favors. If we can help the dragons tide through this calamity this time round, It might not be a bad thing for the dragons to accept this favor. Wu Dao's true body nodded. Initially, he did not want to get involved in the war between the dragons and phoenixes. However, if the source of the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes was the sorcerer tribe, then the dragon tribe was indeed the biggest victim. Over the years, countless living beings had died in the great war between the dragons and phoenixes. This blood debt had to be settled on the heads of the magi. Wu Dao's true body had a vague feeling that things were not as simple as he had imagined. Your injuries. Wu Dao's true body was worried about Daiyu and was still hesitant. Daiyu's beautiful eyes shone with a smile as she asked, "Why? Are you intending to abandon me and head to the dragon world alone?" Wu Dao's true body reacted as well, and stood up holding Daiyu's hand, laughing out loud. "All right, let's go together." In front of the two of them, all demons and monsters had nowhere to hide. During this period of time, rumors spread in the outside world. Some said that the two of them were Dao companions, while others said that Araki Takeshi was merely Daiyu's capable general. After all, the two of them had only appeared publicly in the Battle of the Vast Wilderness. This time round, Daiyu's decision to travel with Wu Dao's true body had another meaning. It was to announce their relationship to the outside world. Daiyu said indifferently, "It's been some time since I headed to the dragon world. It's a good opportunity to check out if the dragon emperors have improved in their methods." Wu Dao's true body raised his brow when he heard that. From what Daiyu said, not only had she been to the dragon world, she had even fought against a few dragon emperors and won. "Miss Dai, you're so impressive," Wu Dao's main body joked. Daiyu also smiled and said, "I'm going there this time to follow you around and travel. You'll have to do the fighting." There were many dragon emperors driving the dragon boats. They were extremely fast. Soon they arrived near Dragon Island. Although it was called the Dragon Island, from afar, this island was not much inferior to the Heaven Realm continent. It lay horizontally in the starry sky, and the terrain was winding, as if dozens of huge dragon bodies were entangled together. In the vicinity of Dragon Island, a bloody mist pervaded the air, and the smell of blood filled the air. From this, one could see how tragic the battle between emperors was. He learned from the Frost Dragon Empress that although the dragons had relied on the dragon souls on the Dragon Island to temporarily defeat the imperial emperors from the world of Wudong and other realms, they had also suffered heavy losses. 2 dragon emperors had even perished. Currently, the dragon world was in a precarious situation. Including the master of the dragon world, there were only 9 dragon emperors left. Among them, 4 were injured. Their worlds were shattered and could not be repaired in a short period of time. If the imperial emperors from the world of Wudong and other realms made a comeback next time, the dragons would not be able to defend themselves. The only possibility was to be exterminated. Dragon Island. Konglong Hall. The master of the dragon world sat in the middle, wearing blood-stained armor. The 8 dragon emperors under him were all present, including the Scorching Sun Dragon Empress and the Frost Dragon Empress. In the hall, the remaining few hundred dragon kings were all present. The loss of the 4 dragon regions was too great for the dragons. Apart from the dozens of dragon kings from the Torch Dragon territory, there were not many dragon kings from the other 4 dragon regions. When Su Zimo and the rest arrived at the Konglong Hall, they looked at the surrounding scene and sighed. The super big world that once stood at the peak of the 3,000 worlds was now dragged down to this stage by the realm war. Looking at the remaining few hundred dragon kings in the hall, it was really sad. Of course, for Long Ran and the others, they were more uneasy and uneasy. Only Su Zimo's expression was normal. From the moment he entered the hall, he had been observing the expressions of the dragons. The dragons did not seem to be out of the ordinary. Even the few dragons that he suspected the most did not show any signs of being cursed. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor roughly recounted what happened on the Torch Dragon planet. When they heard that Su Zimo defeated more than 5,000 cave heavenly kings alone, many dragon kings looked at him in surprise. Some of the dragon kings frowned and were suspicious. However, some of the dragon kings looked grateful when they heard that. However, when they heard that the Torch Dragon King was killed by Su Zimo, A wave of anger rose in the hall. Immediately a dragon stood out. No matter what contributions he made, he has to pay with his life for killing the Torch Dragon King. The Torch Dragon King was cursed and betrayed the dragons. He wanted to silence them, and that was why fellow Taoist Su was forced to retaliate. The Nightmare Dragon King tried his best to explain. The Torch Dragon King is already dead, and there's no proof. You can say whatever you want. I only know one thing. This foreign race killed a Dragon King. Nightmare Dragon King, as a dragon, why are you always speaking up for that foreign race? Don't tell me you've already betrayed the dragons. Those who aren't of our race are bound to have ulterior motives. On the surface, he's helping the Torch Dragon planet. But who knows what he's plotting in the dark? Instantly, the hall fell into an intense argument. To be precise, it was a one-sided suppression. Even with the Nightmare Dragon King's status among the dragons, he could not defend against the condemnation of many Dragon Kings. Yet many dragons echoed such a ridiculous and retarded accusation. In the minds of these dragons, there was no right or wrong. They did not care about the truth either. They were only left with a consciousness. Those who aren't of our race are bound to have ulterior motives. It did not matter if they were righteous or evil, good or bad, good or evil. As long as they were of a foreign race, everyone had the right to kill them. Of course, many of the Dragon Kings remained silent. Those Dragon Kings looked at Su Zimo with apologetic and guilty gazes. Perhaps they understood that Su Zimo was innocent. However, they did not dare to stand out in such an environment. Anyone who stood out to speak up for Su Zimo would be attacked. The dragons who were against the Hornless Dragon King were extremely excited, and their eyes even revealed a sick fanaticism. Su Zimo frowned and felt a sense of déjà vu. He seemed to have seen that gaze somewhere before. However, the hall was extremely chaotic and clamorous, so he couldn't recall it for a moment. Su Zimo remained silent the entire time. He could not speak. To be precise, no matter how the Dragon Kings argued, there would be no outcome. The key was still the attitude of the Dragon Emperors and the Lord of the Dragon World. That's enough. Right then, the Lord of the Dragon World finally spoke. The Lord of the Dragon World was expressionless as he looked at Su Zimo and said slowly, "Human, I'm sure you've seen the attitude of many members of the Dragon World towards this matter. According to the rules of dragons, if you cause the death of the Illumination Dragon King, the dragons will exterminate your entire clan. On account of the fact that you once saved the Illumination Dragon planet, no matter what your motive is, I can make the decision to spare you from being implicated." When Su Zimo heard that, he merely laughed. So the dragons were already rotten to this extent. Chapter 3075. The Hornless Dragon King and the others were worried. It was clear that the Lord of the Dragon World was still trying to convict Su Zimo. "Outsider, why aren't you kneeling down and thanking him?" the Flash Dragon King hollered. "If not for the Lord of the Dragon World's benevolence, your 10 races would have perished because of you." The Hornless Dragon King took a deep breath and stood out once more, saying in a deep voice, "Lord of the Realm, Su Zimo has another identity. He's the peak master of the 9th sword peak of the sword world. If we convict and kill him, because of that, we'll definitely anger the sword world." The moment he said that, the quarreling in the hall quietened down. However, there were still some Dragon Kings who snorted in disdain. "What's so great about the sword world? They'll pay with their lives for killing my race." The Frost Dragon Emperor also said, "If fellow Taoist Su is willing to help, we might be able to unite the sword world and resolve this crisis for the dragons." As she said that, the Frost Dragon Emperor looked at Su Zimo with flickering eyes, indicating for him to agree and tide through this calamity first. Su Zimo smiled and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your kind intentions. However, I've already resigned from the position of Sword World's peak master. I have nothing to do with the Sword World now." "Why, you're silly." The Hornless Dragon King sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and said anxiously, "Agree first, and we'll talk about it in the future. Nobody knows about this." "You're quite honest." The Lord of the Dragon World smiled faintly. "However, It doesn't matter whether you're the peak master of the sword world or not. You have to pay with your life for the death of the Dragon King. That's right, a life for a life. Let him pay with his blood. He even slandered the torched Dragon King for being cursed and betraying the dragons with evil intentions. Immediately, countless dragons in the crowd stood out to support the Lord of the Dragon World. Of the remaining 8 dragon emperors, 3 or 4 of them looked at the high and mighty Lord of the Dragon World with a hint of confusion in their eyes and a sense of unfamiliarity. In fact, an extremely daring thought appeared in their minds. However, the dragon emperors lowered their heads very quickly. Some of their worlds were shattered, and some of their realms were not high enough. They were no match for the Lord of Dragon Realm. This slight change did not escape Su Zimo's eyes. The crowd around him was furious, but he didn't care at all. However, Long Li could no longer hold back. He stepped forward, looked at Spirit Dragon King, Radiant Dragon King, and the other dragons of Candle Dragon Planet, and said loudly, "Are you not going to speak up for him at this time? All of you on Candle Dragon owe him your lives. Dragons will always repay kindness. Can you still face the bloodline of dragons in your own conscience?" These words made all the Dragon Kings on the Torch Dragon Planet ashamed. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King exchanged glances before mustering their courage and stepping forward. Right at this moment, the Lord of the Dragon Realm pressed down with both hands, emitting an enormous pressure that suppressed all sounds. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King had just stepped forward, but they couldn't say a word. There's no need to argue about this. The Lord of the Dragon Realm waved his hand. Now that we're faced with a great enemy, this foreign race isn't worth our effort to behead him in public. Immediately, a few Dragon Kings flashed out and lunged towards Su Zimo with murderous auras. Hold on. At this moment, Long Ran suddenly shouted and stepped forward. His voice was so loud and aggressive that all the dragons were stunned. Thereafter, when they saw that it was only a true dragon, many dragons sneered with disdain. Let's see who can catch up. Long Ran was not disadvantaged in terms of aura against many Dragon Kings, and even a few Dragon Emperors. He shouted, "I've known Araki Takashi for many years and we're close friends. If you guys push your luck and kill him, Araki Takashi will definitely descend upon the Dragon Realm." In Long Ran's mind, he only wanted to delay as much as possible. Araki Takashi would take a day to arrive, and only 4 hours had passed. Seeing that Su Zimo was about to meet with a calamity, he could not think of a countermeasure, and could only brace himself and bring out Araki Takashi first. If he could intimidate these dragons, there might be a chance for a turn of events, even if it was delayed for a few more hours. Initially, Long Li was filled with grief and indignation as he berated the few Dragon Kings of Illumination Dragon Planet. When he heard Long Ran's words, he nearly fainted on the spot. It was fine if Long Ran was bragging to her, but she would not take him seriously even if she smiled. Who would have thought that Long Ran would spout nonsense about how he had known Araki Takashi for many years in public? Who would believe that? That would only backfire and attract endless mockery. When the Hornless Dragon King heard that, he sighed gently and felt a sense of helplessness. The Frost Dragon Emperor shook her head gently. He truly dared to say anything in a desperate situation. Indeed, the hall fell silent for a moment when they heard the words Araki Takashi. Complete silence. Many dragons, hundreds of Dragon Kings, and the 9 Dragon Emperors seemed to be stunned by that Dao title. However, the dragons burst into laughter before long. Ha 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 ha. What did that little true dragon say? He knows Araki Takashi? If you know Araki Takashi, I've even drunk with Araki Takashi before. When Araki Takashi was cultivating, this little true dragon was probably just born and was peeing on mud for fun. Initially, the few Dragon Kings wanted to step forward to suppress Su Zimo. However, when they heard that, they could not help but burst into laughter. Against the mockery of the dragons, Long Ran's face flushed red. Clenching his fists tightly, his eyes spat fire as he shouted, "I know Araki Takashi. So what? I've even saved him and imparted him Dao techniques." Ha 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 ha. These words caused a wave of even more unbridled laughter. Even the few Dragon Emperors chuckled gently when they heard that. That true dragon was rather interesting. To think that he would bring up Araki Takeshi's Dao title to resolve the crisis. Long Li felt a sense of guilt when he saw Long Ran being mocked by countless clansmen. It's all my fault. Long Li blamed himself internally. If I hadn't mentioned Araki Takeshi to him, he wouldn't have known about Araki Takeshi and wouldn't have been mocked so much. Is it funny? At this moment, an extremely unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded in the hall. The voice was neither loud nor soft. However, it spread to every corner of the arrogant dragon hall and entered the ears of every single dragon. In fact, it even suppressed all the laughter. The laughter gradually died down. The few dragon emperors frowned. They had only heard the voice but did not see who it was. Even their spirit consciousnesses could not detect it. The next moment, the void in the hall tore open, and two figures descended hand in hand. It was a man and a woman. They stood in midair and looked at the dragons in the hall. The man had black hair and wore a silver mask. Only a pair of eyes that were as deep as the sea could be seen. The woman wore a blood-colored robe, and her black hair was like a waterfall. Just by standing there casually, she exuded an aura that looked down on the world. Suddenly, the hall fell into a dead silence. All the dragons widened their eyes in fear, as though their throats were gripped by an invisible hand. Even breathing became extremely difficult, let alone laughing. Chapter 3076. The dragon emperors had solemn expressions. The lord of the dragon world slowly stood up from his seat and looked at the two people in midair. His heart trembled, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. The dragon emperors had never seen Wu Dao's true body before. But they had all seen Daiyu. Back then, this blood-robed woman was like the sun in the sky. She traversed the 3,000 worlds and challenged the strongest beings of the 10,000 races. No one could stop her. Even the imperial emperors of some super great worlds and powerful races had been defeated by her one after another. She had also come to the dragon realm before. She had defeated several imperial emperors in this hall before leaving in a carefree manner. Who could stand side by side with Daiyu and hold hands with her? In the 3,000 worlds, there was probably only one person who had the qualifications. Emperor Araki Takeshi. Rumor had it that Emperor Araki Takeshi always wore a silver mask that covered his face. It was exactly the same as the one in midair. Blood Butterfly Demon Empress. The Lord of the Dragon World said slowly. Hearing this name, there was a commotion in the hall. In this life, the Blood Butterfly Demon Empress was too infamous. Even if some dragons had never seen Daiyu before, they had heard of this name. The Lord of the Dragon World's gaze turned and landed on Wu Dao's true body. He asked in a deep voice, "This is?" Actually, the Lord of the Dragon World and the Dragon Emperors had guessed the identity of Wu Dao's true body immediately. But they were still not sure and did not dare to believe it. Why did Emperor Araki Takeshi and the Blood Butterfly Demon Empress suddenly come here? Could it really be because of that true dragon? It was simply too ridiculous. The Lord of the Dragon World and the Dragon Emperors wanted a definite answer. I am Araki Takeshi. Wu Dao's true body said indifferently. Whoosh. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately caused an uproar in the hall. The dragons were stunned by the Araki Takeshi Dao name, and even subconsciously took a few steps back. Their footsteps were chaotic and the crowd surged. In the blink of an eye, a large empty area appeared around Wu Dao's true body and Daiyu. The hearts of the Dragon Emperors skipped a beat. Who would have thought that this person would actually come? The Horned Dragon King was also dumbfounded. Long Li blinked his red eyes and covered his mouth with his hand, trying not to make a sound. He looked at Araki Takeshi and Daiyu in the air, then looked at Long Ran not far away. He was completely stunned. Could it be that Emperor Araki Takeshi was really brought here by Long Ran? Countless doubts flashed in Long Li's mind. Yes, that must be it. Because I once mentioned to Big Brother Long Ran in Beacon City that perhaps only Emperor Araki Takeshi has the ability to quell the war of the dragons and phoenixes. At that time, Big Brother Long Ran thought of a way to tell Emperor Araki Takeshi. Otherwise, Emperor Araki Takeshi wouldn't be able to descend at this moment. Long Li looked at Long Ran, his eyes filled with gratitude. I was wrong to blame Big Brother Long Ran. I even mocked him. But he didn't care. He wasn't even angry because of it. He even secretly informed Emperor Araki Takashi to help me and the dragons. Not far away, Long Ran was a little scared by Long Li's passionate gaze. After Wu Dao's true body descended, Long Ran was shocked. His original intention was to scare the other party and stall for time as much as possible. Who would have thought that Araki Takashi would really appear, and even come hand in hand with the Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor? This lineup. Even the group of Dragon Kings who had mocked and ridiculed him just a moment ago were now bewildered. The way they looked at him had changed. Zimo must have secretly informed Wu Dao's true body. That's why he could rush over at this moment. At that thought, Long Ran looked at Su Zimo, who was beside him. With a faint smile on his face, Su Zimo nodded slightly and blinked. A single look and Long Ran understood Su Zimo's intentions. Initially, with Wu Dao's true body descending, it was difficult to continue hiding the secret of the two true bodies. However, because Long Ran suddenly stood out, Wu Dao's true body descending seemed logical and had a more sufficient reason. There was no need to expose the relationship between the two true bodies at this moment. Long Ran was secretly delighted. Su Zimo had hidden himself. This time round, he would fulfill his wish. Ever since he ascended to the dragons, he had been living a repressed life. Although he had Long Li's help later on, he did not receive much attention among the dragons. Until this moment, apart from Araki Takashi and Dai Yu who were in midair, he had already become the focus of everyone's attention. May I know why fellow Taoists Araki Takashi and Shuedai are here? The Lord of the Dragon World calmed himself down and asked in a deep voice. Bloody hell, are you deaf? Before Wu Dao's true body could speak, Long Ran stood out and hollered. Didn't you hear me say that if you push your luck and kill us, Araki Takashi will descend? Are you ignoring my words? The Lord of the Dragon World could not differentiate right from wrong, and reversed right from wrong. He wanted to kill them earlier on. With Wu Dao's true body as his backing, Long Ran was extremely confident and scolded him without giving him any face. The dragons were all stunned by this scene. A true dragon actually dared to point at the Lord of the Dragon World and scold him. Although the Lord of the Dragon World had a dark expression and clenched his fists tightly, he did not take any further action. It was clear that he was wary. Wu Dao's true body ignored the Lord of the Dragon World and surveyed his surroundings, saying indifferently, We're not only close friends, he's also my savior. Were you guys mocking him earlier on? The hearts of the dragons skipped a beat, and none of them dared to meet his gaze. They lowered their heads and kept quiet out of fear. Although Wu Dao's true body's tone was calm, the dragons could sense a bone-chilling coldness from it. It was only when Wu Dao's true body admitted it personally that the dragons were certain that this troublesome problem was truly caused by Long Ran. The few who laughed the loudest earlier on were already trembling in fear. Little Huang, Long Ran waved it off. What savior? It's all in the past. There's no need to mention it. Let's just talk about equals. Long Li's gaze towards Long Ran changed gradually. At that moment, Long Ran was indeed shining brightly. Brother Long Ran is way too low-key. He clearly knows a big shot like Emperor Lord Araki Takashi, but he has never mentioned it to anyone among the dragons. Even when he was wronged in the past, he merely smiled and brushed it off. He has never thought of asking Emperor Lord Araki Takashi to step in. I once mocked him, but he couldn't be bothered to argue with me. Right then, the Hornless Dragon King suddenly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and asked, Daughter, you were quite close to Long Ran previously? Yes, what's wrong? Long Li nodded. It's nothing, the Hornless Dragon King said. Long Ran's potential and character are not bad. He's humble, low-key and righteous. Let's interact more in the future and keep in touch. Initially, the Hornless Dragon King did not have much of a feeling towards Long Ran. However, the more he looked at Long Ran, the more he liked him. Brother Long Ran is indeed worthy of respect, Long Li said. Back then, Brother Su asked me to take care of Brother Long Ran. Today, Emperor Lord Araki Takashi is also willing to cross billions of miles to descend to the dragon world for Brother Long Ran. This is enough to show Brother Long Ran's character. Back then in the lower dimension, Big Brother Long Ran was definitely a great figure who could summon the wind and summon the rain. Otherwise, how could he have gotten acquainted with experts like Big Brother Su and Emperor Desolate Marshal and obtained their respect? Chapter 3077. I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding here. The Lord of the Dragon World said in a deep voice. I only gave the order to kill that human king. I had no intention of harming Long Ran. You can't kill Zemo even if you want to. Long Ran sneered, looking at the Lord of the Dragon World as though he was looking at an idiot. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor stood out and cupped his fists. Since Araki Takashi and Shuedai are here today, let's drop this matter for now. Let's not harm our relationship. Long Ran sneered again. You're afraid of harming our relationship now. But you wanted to kill all of us just now. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor's expression turned ugly. They had already put down their pride and retreated, but Long Ran was still being overbearing. At this moment, Dayu looked at the Lord of the Dragon Realm and said indifferently, Dahai, the last time I came to the Dragon Realm, you avoided a battle. You've become much bolder these years, going on expeditions everywhere, and initiating wars. Her words caused a huge commotion in the hall. Apart from the few dragon emperors, even the many dragon kings present did not know about this. In some super domains such as the Dragon World and the Divine World, there were indeed peak emperor experts who could fight against Dayu. However, once the two sides fought, the outcome would be unpredictable. Moreover, Dayu did not have any ill intentions when she visited. She only wanted to challenge the experts of the various races. There was no deep hatred between the two sides, so the peak emperor experts of the super domains did not attack. Peak emperor emperors who cultivated to the perfected martial emperor realm only had one goal left. That was to take the final step and become a martial emperor. If the world was destroyed because of a battle with Dayu, they might miss the opportunity to become a martial emperor. Therefore, peak emperor emperors like Dragon Emperor Daohai chose to avoid a battle after Dayu's visit. Even so, Dayu dared to be invincible in the various major domains and come and go as she pleased. She had indeed caused a huge commotion in the 3,000 realms. The Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor's ferocious name was also made during that period of time through the many martial emperor battles. Do you know about the Yenshin curse? Dayu suddenly changed the topic and asked. I don't. The Lord of the Dragon World said expressionlessly. Among the dragons in the hall, the expressions of several dragons changed. Dayu said, those who are cursed by the Yenshin curse will be controlled by others, losing their minds and self. Although this person's appearance is no different from before, his every move, every word, and every action is under the influence and control of the caster. Hearing this, some of the 9 dragon emperors came to a realization. Some people had vigilant expressions, their gazes turned, and they even looked at the high and mighty master of the dragon realm. What are you trying to say? The Lord of the Dragon Realm asked coldly. Dayu said, it's not a coincidence that you dragons ended up in your current state. Instead, you were manipulated by the witch race and walked step by step into the abyss, sinking into a quagmire. Nonsense! The Scorching Sun Dragon Monarch scolded. What kind of cultivation realm are we? How can we be infected with the Loathe Victory curse? Shuedai Beast Monarch, if you continue to deceive us, I have no choice but to ask you to leave. Not bad. Another dragon emperor stood out and said in a deep voice, the dragons do not welcome you. In the hall, some of the dragons that had been silent and fearful suddenly had fanatical looks in their eyes again. They loudly echoed, the dragons do not welcome you. Humph. Wu Dao's true body harumphed softly. The voice was like a clap of thunder in the hall. The cries of the dragons came to an abrupt end. Countless dragons widened their eyes and felt their minds buzzing as their vision turned dark. That single harumph caused them to almost spit out blood. Suddenly, the Frost Dragon Emperor asked, may I ask, Emperor Lord Araki Takashi, How do you check if one is infected with the loathe victory curse? There are indeed no flaws on the surface, the Wu Dao's true body replied. As long as your essence spirit is revealed, you'll know. What a joke, the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor sneered. As Emperor Lord experts, we have to hand over our essence spirits just because of your baseless speculation. Where's my dignity as a Dragon Emperor? You have no dignity before me. The gaze of the Wu Dao's true body shifted to the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, and he said slowly, "If you don't hand it over, I can take it personally." Before his sentence was finished, Wu Dao's true body released Daiyu's palm and arrived before the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in a flash. He was way too fast. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor seemed to be prepared as well. He channeled his bloodline right away, and his body expanded as he prepared to revert to his true form. A bloodline phenomenon appeared vaguely. A perfected world was formed behind him as well. Beside the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, there were two other Emperor Lords who were prepared to help as well. Roar! Suddenly, the Wu Dao's true body roared, causing the three Dragon Emperors to shudder and spit out blood. The world behind them could not be formed immediately as well. The next moment, Wu Dao's true body raised his arm and punched the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in the chest. Exclamation point! The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor's body was only half formed when it was shattered into pieces by the punch of the Wu Dao's true body, and blood mist filled the air. The Wu Dao's true body reached out and grabbed the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in his palm amidst the blood mist. It was over. In the blink of an eye, the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was defeated and his essence spirit was trapped. By the time the dragons reacted, the Wu Dao's true body had already grabbed the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and returned to Daiyu's side. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor could not even last a single breath before he was suppressed. What are you doing? The Lord of the Dragon World was enraged and hollered with widened eyes and a murderous aura. The Wu Dao's true body ignored him and merely condensed a water droplet on his fingertip, dripping it onto the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in his palm. Ching! The moment the seemingly ordinary water droplet touched the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, it stirred up wisps of green smoke. Ah! The essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor let out a series of tragic cries. Right in front of everyone, dark green threads appeared on the surface of his essence spirit. They were densely packed and almost covered his entire essence spirit. Upon seeing this, the Frost Dragon Emperor and the rest of the group were astounded. The power of a curse. Indeed, the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was cursed. Furthermore, by the looks of it, the curse had been on the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor for a long time, and had already covered his essence spirit completely. At that moment, the dark green threads on the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor were gradually melting under the envelopment of the water droplet. The water droplet released by the Wu Dao's true body earlier on was actually the Hell Spring water. The greatest use of the Hell Spring water was that it could cleanse the power of curses. Back then, Qinglian's true body was afflicted with two major curses, and she relied on the Hell Spring water to recover to her original state. After Wu Dao's true body condensed the 10 gates of hell, it was equivalent to him refining the universe and opening up hell, allowing him to mobilize the 9 springs of hell at any time. Indeed, the Hell Spring water could dispel the cleansing curse. However, the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was almost fused with the Yin Sheng curse. In such a state, the Hell Spring water was dispelling the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, as well as the curse. When the curse on the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was dispelled, the life force of the essence spirit would dissipate as well. Thankfully, the essence spirit of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor gradually calmed down after the initial pain. He seemed to be gradually regaining his rationality and found himself understanding what was happening to him. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor looked at the Wu Dao's true body with a hint of gratitude. He could finally be freed from the Yin Sheng curse and regain his freedom. However, it was all too late. Chapter 3078. Thank you. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor's essence spirit looked at Wu Dao's true body and sent a thought. After that, his origin spirit looked around and looked at the dragons in the hall. Sorrow and guilt surged on his face. I'm sorry. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor sent out his final thought, and his essence spirit melted into the hell spring along with the curse of Yin Sheng. Most of the dragons had yet to react to the series of changes, and were stunned on the spot. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was dead. Furthermore, he was truly cursed. Although Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor died because of Araki Takashi seemed to be helping him free. Even before Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor died, he was thanking Araki Takashi. Could the reason why the dragon world ended up in this state today be because of the witch world's manipulation? Some of the dragons were flustered, as though they were afraid of something. To think that Brother Scorching Sun would be cursed and lose his mind. The Lord of the Dragon World was heartbroken inside. Thank you, fellow Taoist Desolate Marshal, for helping Brother Scorching Sun break free from the curse and obtain relief. At the same time, you've also removed such a malignant tumor for our dragon race. Suddenly, the Frost Dragon Emperor said, the reason why the dragon world ended up like this is because of Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor. He doesn't have that much power. Yes, the Lord of Dragon World nodded. The other dragons might be cursed as well. I'll get to the bottom of this matter. Don't worry, everyone. Wu Dao's true body looked at the Lord of Dragon World and said indifferently, there's only one person who has the ability to lead the entire dragons into the abyss step by step, including the Frost Dragon Emperor. A few dragon emperors and some dragon kings understood the meaning behind Wu Dao's true body's words and looked at the Lord of Dragon World. All these years, under the leadership of the Lord of Dragon World, the dragons became more and more radical, inciting wars time and time again to conquer everywhere. The pleasure of fighting and killing was indeed extremely satisfying for many dragons. When other people raised objections, they would be suppressed by louder voices. In fact, some people had long suspected the Lord of the Dragon Realm. However, in the Dragon World, the Master of the Dragon World was supreme. He had the strongest combat strength and the greatest authority. Who would dare to question him in the slightest? Except for Araki Takashi. Araki Takashi, what is the meaning of this? The Dragon Realm Lord's face sank, and he said in a cold voice, are you suspecting me? The Frost Dragon Emperor asked in a deep voice. How do we determine who is infected with the Yin Sheng curse? Does everyone have to offer up their primordial spirits? The risk of handing over his essence spirit for others to inspect was simply too great. Anyone would feel conflicted. That won't be necessary. Wu Dao waved his sleeves, and a large number of wine cups appeared in front of him. They were filled with spring water, and were floating in the air. This is the water of the Hell Spring. It can dissolve the curse. If you haven't been cursed for too long, and drink the water of the Hell Spring, you still have a chance of being saved. If you're not cursed, there won't be any abnormalities even if you drink a cup. The Frost Dragon Emperor pondered and said, in other words, if you're cursed, as long as you drink a mouthful of the Hell Spring water, the power of the curse will immediately manifest. That's right. Wu Dao nodded. The other Dragon Emperor frowned and said coldly, who knows what's in your wine cups? What Hell Spring water? We've never heard of it, and we don't know what's in it. Two options. Wu Dao said calmly, or I'll personally grab your primordial spirits and sprinkle them with the Hell Spring water. Or you can choose a cup yourselves. Araki Takashi, the Dragon Realm Lord, was furious and scolded. Aren't you being too overbearing? I'll go first. The Frost Dragon Emperor stood out and said, I believe in Araki Takashi. With his status, he doesn't have to go through so much trouble to kill us. What he's doing now is giving us dragons one last chance. With that, the Frost Dragon Emperor stepped forward, closed her eyes, and casually picked a cup and drank it. As the Hell Spring water flowed down her throat, there was a slight coolness. There was indeed a mysterious power hidden in it, but it had no effect on the Frost Dragon Emperor. Many dragons were watching the Frost Dragon Emperor's reaction. After a while, the Frost Dragon Emperor opened her eyes and said, there's nothing wrong with this spring water. You can drink it without worry." Immediately, a second dragon emperor stepped forward and drank a cup of hell spring water. After a while, this dragon emperor nodded and said, "There's nothing wrong with this water. If you're not cursed, come and drink a cup." "Ridiculous," the dragon realm lord sneered. "We dragons will never be manipulated by others. As the dragon realm lord, I won't drink that hell spring water." "It's fine if you don't drink it." Wu Dao picked up a cup and walked toward the dragon realm lord, saying, "Let me toast you." Before he finished speaking, Wu Dao had already arrived in front of the dragon realm lord. "Kill." The dragon realm lord was already prepared. With a shout, he released his great perfection world in advance. The two dragon emperors who wanted to help Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor also attacked again. They held up a world and suppressed Wu Dao's true body. The three dragon emperors attacked at the same time. Other than the dragon realm lord, who was a peak imperial emperor, the other two were ordinary imperial emperors and peerless imperial emperors. Wu Dao's true body didn't even turn his head. He flicked his finger. A drop of hell spring water pierced through the air. The huge force instantly shattered the ordinary imperial emperor's world. The dragons were shocked. Araki Takashi's combat strength was so terrifying. He didn't even touch the dragon emperor directly. He only used the water droplet from his finger to shatter a world. The world shattered. The hell spring water dripped down and splashed on the imperial emperor's body. Swish! Wisps of green smoke rose from the top of the imperial emperor's head. A few dark green threads appeared in his eyes as well. It was strange and terrifying. However, compared to Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, the Dragon Emperor's curse was not deep. After the hell spring water dispelled the Yin Sheng curse in his essence spirit, his essence spirit was also injured to a certain extent. However, his life was not threatened. Wu Dao's true body flicked his finger gently. Thereafter, he waved his sleeves and flung them back, slapping the peerless Dragon Emperor's world heavily. Boom! There was a deafening bang. The peerless Dragon Emperor's world collapsed as well. The sleeves of Wu Dao's true body carried a large amount of hell spring water mist that scattered on the peerless Dragon Emperor's body. The peerless Dragon Emperor shrieked tragically as a dark green color appeared in his eyes with a pained expression. The hell spring water was working on his body. The three Dragon Emperors attacked at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the Dragon Realm Lord was the only one left. The Dragon Realm Lord had no way of dodging. He supported a perfected world and released his bloodline phenomenon at the same time. His aura surged to its peak as he roared into the skies. His dragon roar was so loud that it pierced through the clouds. Chapter 3079. Back then, the Lord of the Dragon Realm was the only top expert who could fight against Daiyu. His strength was naturally not to be underestimated. If Wu Dao's true body wanted to suppress him, he only needed to bring out Martial Universe. However, once Martial Universe was released, the commotion was too great. The power that burst forth was also extremely terrifying, close to the Arch Realm. The Fiend Lord had once reminded him not to create a commotion, like the Battle of the Grand Wilderness. Facing the Lord of the Dragon Realm, Wu Dao's true body did not intend to release Martial Universe. Boom! Wu Dao's true body raised his hand and punched, condensing endless Daoan laws. Wu Dao's will collided with the Lord of the Dragon Realm's world, causing a loud bang. The Lord of the Dragon Realm's world shook continuously, but coupled with his bloodline phenomenon, it actually withstood Wu Dao's punch. If the Origin Martial Grotto Heaven took another step forward and formed a world, Wu Dao's true body's bloodline power would also increase exponentially. He could destroy the Lord of the Dragon Realm's perfected world with his bare hands. Now he was still lacking. Araki Takashi is only SOO. The Lord of the Dragon Realm laughed loudly, his spirits lifted. Facing this world, Wu Dao's true body could also shatter it with a few punches. However, hearing the Lord of the Dragon Realm's words, Wu Dao's true body could not be bothered to waste time with him. He directly took out the hell-suppressing cauldron and smashed it over. The four saint souls revolved and dragon roars intertwined. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, and the surrounding proud dragon palace was on the verge of collapse. Dust rustled down. Immediately after, a cracking sound came from the world formed by the Lord of the Dragon Realm. Cracks appeared under the hell-suppressing cauldron, spreading rapidly like a spiderweb. It shattered. In just a moment, a perfected world collapsed on the spot. Even the Lord of the Dragon Realm's bloodline phenomenon was shattered into pieces. In the Battle of the Grand Wilderness, the hell-suppressing cauldron absorbed the bloodlines of the 4 saint beasts and was reconstructed. In the hands of Wu Dao's true body, the power that erupted was no weaker than the arch-divine weapon back then. The Dragon Realm Lord's eyes widened in shock. Before he could react, he saw Wu Dao's real body flip the prison-suppressing cauldron upside down, and the whole cauldron of hell's spring water poured down on him. Wu Dao's main body originally only wanted to toast him with a cup of spring water. Since the Lord of Dragon Realm was unwilling to submit, he could only respect him. In the blink of an eye, the Master of the Dragon Realm was drenched from head to toe by the hell's spring. In the next moment, green smoke rose from the top of his head. Dark green threads also appeared in his eyes. They were the signs of being infected by the Yin Shen curse. The Master of the Dragon Realm was infected with the Yin Shen curse, to a lesser degree than the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor. However, he was much heavier than the other 2 Dragon Emperors. Even if he could temporarily preserve his life under the hell water spring, his primordial spirit would most likely be severely injured, and he would not have much time left. The Dragon Realm Master was drenched in the hell spring water and was in great pain. Although he was still fighting with all his might just now, he seemed to have realized something at this moment. He did not make a sound, only gritting his teeth and silently enduring the pain, his body trembling. Seeing this scene, the dragons had complicated expressions, and a trace of sorrow rose in their hearts. The Master of the Dragon Realm was also cursed, controlled, and lost his mind, leading the dragons step by step into the abyss, until today, when he was in such an irreversible situation. Under the command of the Frost Dragon Emperor and the remaining Dragon Emperors, the dragons in the hall drank the hell water one after another. Among them, some dragons who were infected with the Yin Shen curse were exposed. However, compared to the number of dragons in the hall, there were not many dragons who were infected with the curse. Many dragons stared blankly at the Master of the Dragon Realm, and some of his clansmen, who were enduring the pain and cleansing the curse. They were at a loss, helpless, and even disappointed. These clansmen were infected with the curse, lost their minds, and were controlled by others, which was why they did so many things to harm the dragons. However, they were not infected with any curse. All these years, they followed behind the Master of the Dragon Realm, and these dragons and committed countless crimes. In the end, they could not keep their bottom line, and released the evil in their hearts, falling into madness. Although they were not infected with the Yin Shen curse, they still lost themselves. Su Zimo could not help but be secretly shocked when he sensed all of this. The Yin Shen curse was not the most terrifying thing. Using the Yin Shen curse to bewitch the hearts of people, causing the originally upright and kind people to gradually transform into demons, was the most terrifying thing. The Hellspring water could resolve the curse on them. However, who could resolve the curse in their hearts? Even if the dragons survived this calamity, their vitality would be greatly damaged, and they would not be as strong as before. As time passed, the Yin Shen curse on the dragons gradually disappeared. Some dragons had been infected with the Yin Shen curse for too long, and their ending was similar to that of the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor. Not long after they died. However, most of the dragons who were infected with the curse survived. For them, it was a fate worse than death right now. The injuries to their essence spirits were secondary. When they recovered their minds and found themselves, everything they had done all these years naturally appeared in their minds. Every single memory was stained with the blood of their clansmen and innocent living beings, causing them to feel tormented internally. Fellow Taoist Araki Takashi, I'm sorry. The Lord of the Dragon Realm's face was pale, and his aura was weak. He stood up and bowed deeply in the direction of Wu Dao's true body. You don't have to apologize to me. Wu Dao's true body shook his head gently. Up till now, the dragons had not harmed them. The dragons were the ones who suffered the most damage to the Lord of the Dragon Realm, and the others, the entire Dragon Realm. The Lord of the Dragon Realm surveyed his surroundings and looked at his dejected clansmen. He could not help but feel sorrow, and tears streamed down his face. The dragons that were initially powerful for a period of time were left with only these clansmen, and they were in such a miserable state. He had almost destroyed the entire dragons. The calamity of the dragons this time round was not only a blow to the dragons in terms of strength. It was a heavy blow to the hearts, essence, and spirit of the dragons. No one knew how many years it would take for them to recover from such damage. Would the dragons still have a chance? Suddenly, Dayu asked. From what I know, the conditions for the Yin Shen curse are rather harsh. As long as you're prepared, you won't be controlled by others. Heis. At the mention of this, the Lord of the Dragon Realm sighed deeply. Back then, the Lord of the Witch World came to visit, and said that he had discovered the ruins of an ancient emperor. He invited me to head there together with him, and I agreed, because I was tempted. I was wary of the Lord of the Witch World the entire time, and did not dare to be careless. However, there were many restrictions in the ruins, and we were all infected with a long-lost ancient poison. Given our cultivation, we can suppress the ancient poison temporarily. However, we can't dispel it, and it's a hidden danger in our bodies. Dayu smiled faintly. I'm sure the Lord of the Witch World knows how to dispel it long ago. The Lord of the Dragon Realm nodded and laughed self-deprecatingly. Now that I think about it, the reason why he was infected with the poison back then was to gain my trust. A few years later, when he returned to the Dragon Realm, the ancient poison in his body had already been dispelled. I asked him about the method, and he said that there was a secret method of the witch race that could dispel the poison. As the Lord of the Dragon Realm, and I was in the Dragon Realm at that time, I don't think he would dare to have any other thoughts. Dragons will never be forced by others. If he dared to use this opportunity to do anything to me, I would kill him even if I died. At this point, everyone could guess what happened next. The Lord of the Dragon Realm said, I've never heard of the Yin Shen curse, nor did I know that there was such a terrifying curse in the world. I also didn't know that this curse could cause one to lose their mind and sense of self. Furthermore, after he cast the technique, the ancient poison in my body was indeed dispelled, and I didn't sense any signs of being infected with the curse. Therefore, I let him leave. Dahai, how could you be so greedy and careless? The Frost Dragon Emperor sighed in sorrow for his misfortune. Now that the Lord of the Dragon Realm was being controlled, it was much easier to create an opportunity for the other dragons to be infected with the curse. Su Zimo suddenly asked, What poison did you get infected with? This question was a little abrupt, and came from the human king, who had been silent all this while. The Lord of the Dragon Realm glanced at Su Zimo, and hesitated for a moment before saying, The Nether Calamity Poison. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.